Yes, I can barely hear you.
All right. Thank you very much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to figure out the technical issues we're having, and everyone is able to join and participate in the meeting this evening. And welcome to the August 3rd meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Manatee Springs. The Historic Preservation Commission is composed of members who are appointed by City Council to review proposals related to historic structures and to guide preservation of Manatee Springs unique historic structures. The Historic Preservation Commission is made up of community volunteers who are independently assessing the information presented to them. We are being asked this evening to adjust our agenda. First, we are going to call to order. And when I call to order, I would like to introduce the commissioners so everyone knows who we are. And those Katsa, chair of the Reconsideration Commission.
And it will be Rusty vice chair.
Did you say something, Doug? I can't really quite hear you.
I said, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, thank you. I can hear you when you speak close. Yes, this is Joy Porter on the hybrid system.
We will go ahead and approve minutes for July 6, 2022 regular meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any changes they'd like to make to the minutes?
I move approval of the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this point, we have been asked by staff to make a adjustment in our agenda, commissioners, and what we will be doing is we'll be taking section 5 other business and moving it to the front of the line, which is regarding discussion and update of the Carnegie Library expansion. And also, as I asked for approval to move this agenda item, I would like to add that we will be having no public comment on this since it's not a voting item this evening. It is just a presentation of information from the architect ratio of the will be soon the final concept designs. Do I have a motion for this? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Then let's go ahead and listen to staff report and introduction to ratios. Library expansion.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to move straight into the architect's presentation tonight for the Carnegie Library proposed edition. Like the chair mentioned, this is just a discussion item tonight, so we are not making a formal vote. We're just hearing feedback on proposed revisions. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Chelsea for a quick presentation, and then we'll turn it over to the architect. Thank you, and thank you all for bearing with us for technical difficulties. This will be proposed SAC 2210. This is again not an active item tonight. This is a preliminary hearing. This is the proposed edition of the library. You have a additional hearing tentatively expected for October 5th. Just for reference, the historic library was expected in here we have the floor plan, the site plan of the institution. The item in yellow, this space in yellow, is the existing Carnegie library. This portion here is the addition. This is accessible from the street level. This is accessible from the managed property level. This slide might be a little bit difficult to see. These are all views of the proposed expansion. Here you can see that we have the library services room on the lower level with study rooms, as well as the service desk. We do have to the main foyer and the existing library area. This is a rendering of the on the left. Glass. I'm going on that screen because next slide just says this. And from here, I'll pull up the next presentation.
So, give it your.
Good evening, commissioners. I am Eric Beverly with Ratio Architects. I'm at 7822 West 17th Avenue in Manitoba.
Dylan, did we get dialed out? Hello? Katie, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Did we get dialed out or something? We can't hear. He just introduced himself.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's all I heard.
As every project continues to evolve and be refined, the details of how the project evolves and gets refined is even more important on these historical projects. And if you continue on in the presentation, please. Next slide. And so we provided a packet. We might skip through some of the slides to get to the comparison between the previous and the new. And if there's any slides that we want to talk about in more detail, please feel free to stop me, but I think we'll keep going to the actual design part of the slides. Keep going, please. And so I think the first thing to point out is that the structure is set back in the library or in the park space, which is atypical for the commercial core area. And as we previously discussed, this really is a special park space that is going to need to conform to its kind of own immediate boundary conditions. And a quick overview of the general scope for anyone who might not have heard the previous presentation is the existing Carnegie library is going to be just about doubled in size through a accessible addition that's going to be adding a stair and a lift to provide full access to all patrons of the library, as well as expansion of the library's services that it can offer the community. Next slide, please. And to start the conversation off between where we were before and where we are currently, we just wanted to reference some of the existing standards in place to really help emphasize the differentiation and celebration of the existing building between that transitional moment where the new building comes in contact with that. And as you're going to see throughout the conversation, as we get into more and more of the details, just the emphasis we're really trying to place on that existing structure remaining as pure as possible, and then drawing inspiration from it, but not copying any of its content. And the building form has not necessarily changed. The massing and scale, it's still the same square footage as you've seen previously. It's just more so in the detailing of these massings and how that conversation between the new and the old is taking place. Go to the next slide, please. And as mentioned during the staff report, the functionality of that south addition is still as it was previously, the stair and the accessible lift to allow access to the lower level. And the existing community room will remain untouched predominantly. There's no new walls being added into it. And then the south portion of the existing library is intended to have additional functional rooms installed with it. And you can move to the next slide, that's fine. And so I think this slide really shows some of the biggest updates that we've done to the design. The upper left being the existing current structure, we'll call it the bottom left being the previous design, and the enlarged image being where we are currently. Now, the previous design was, from a functional standpoint, it achieved all of our needs, but there was always an exploration need to be taken into the refinement of the architectural details. And as we got into figuring out ways to really celebrate the existing structure, while also getting feedback from the community of different tweaks that we can enact to again further enhance the existing building's experience, we started exploring ways to disconnect the roof lines in a manner that allows that form to be complementary to the existing structure, yet have a clear designation between where the existing and the new occurs. And in that space between the stair, the stair mast and the existing structure is to lightly touch the existing building with these smaller transparent glass walls. And what we envision this very intentional contemporary moment, the architectural style of its time to achieve is by drawing the users further into the site, by clearly delineating where the main entry of the library space is, as well as drawing a connection between the main access point for users to the library site through that space to the rooftop deck beyond. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we're showing the east elevation, I'm sorry, the west elevation, where the one-story portion is dug into the earth below, trying to minimize its impact on the existing Carnegie library. And on the main differentiation that you'll see between the previous design and the new design on these images will be, again, that roof massing much more clearly being separated from the existing Carnegie library, really differentiating itself from the previous mass. Slide. And here we have the south elevation, the left image being a much more heavy feeling high roof peak with a roof that from a materiality standpoint seems to be replicating the existing structure, as well as some additional structural elements below. Where we've evolved this to is a much lower building height, much more in line and less overpowering of the existing structure, because we've reduced the soffits, we've detached this from the existing building. It just allows our same slope that we had previously to be a lot less impactful on the general massing of the building. And then what we've also done on this elevation is taking the typical window module and by hanging some of them together, trying to create a very intentional moment where passerbys can look through the addition and actually see the existing Carnegie Library south wall still intact through that space. And I guess this might be a little detailed, but in going from an elevator to a lift, we were able to kind of eliminate some of the chase or additional walls that would have been within the space previously. And what that allows us to do is fully open this, I guess we'll say the stair buildings floor plan so that you have a fully unobstructed view. And so we just like to picture this being illuminated in the evening and really letting that existing wall glow and shine out to the community. And after evolving that stair inlet portion of the building, in trying to lighten the touch to the existing building with the more transparent moments, we made the decision to treat the lower addition similarly. So unfortunately, a little hidden in this elevation, just where the lower mass touches the existing Carnegie library, that is intended to be, again, another smaller glass moment where users entering this lower structure will be able to kind of look down the existing exterior wall, look into the new library and see that exterior wall continuing within that lower space. But we are still keeping the same window rhythm, trying to keep the proportions complementary to the existing structure. And we'll get into more of the detail a little bit later, I believe. And we kind of went through the plan already, but I just wanted to kind of emphasize the upper right image in particular, where you see the existing post-shade walls terminate on the south end of the image. We've got those recessed vertical walls on each end, and those are intended to line up with the existing windows. So those existing windows will be exposed within that space, and that recess is, again, further trying to differentiate massings of the existing structure from the new and create that very clear visual separation between the two. Next slide, please. So I touched on these throughout the previous talk, but I guess we wanted to highlight the specific moments that we've been talking about in a little more detail. And so I'd be happy to hear any questions about these in more specific detail as we continue to evolve the project. But these are those glass moments between the new and the old. They're tended to be very minimalist in design. I think the contemporary style lends itself to a very simple architectural detail, and with the hope of it really being overshadowed by the existing Carnegie's library's more intricate brickwork. What you'll also see in this image is the existing Carnegie has a very interesting brick reveal pattern throughout we'll call it the lower half of the building, and it goes up 3 or 4 feet onto the upper level. But it looks almost as if it's a void, but the reality is that the brick reveal is a 3/4 deep projection, and it's very fascinating how interesting it is on these elevations, and we really wanted to try to be inspired by that and capture that in the new architectural massing, yet be very clear as it is not of the same time. And so what we've done is incorporated a brick course projection across our addition of both the upper portion and the lower portion. It's not of the same proportion. It's twice the proportion of the existing, so still falling within the proper ratios, but again, being very different than the existing. And then on the upper right image, you can see the same brick coursing on the new as in the main entry, as well as you can see the similar architectural style of that light transparent touch point to the existing structure. Next slide. Another really important element is the exposed rafters of the existing structure. And it creates such an interesting texture at the roof line that in our previous design, we did not detail that out yet, but our intent is to capture a similar rhythm of those exposed rafters. So from a distance, it'll feel very of its place and similar. However, our intent to differentiate them when we're to get closer and closer to the structure is going to be a different edge cut on those, something a little more modern. So again, the building will feel very intentional from the distance, and as you get close, it's become more and more clear what the portion is. Next slide. And this is kind of an example of how the new rafters could be a little different than the existing, whether they're flat cut, or I think the current condition is they got notched to work with the existing gutter. So I think we're gonna have more conversation internally about, where the inspiration is gonna, or how the inspiration is gonna result in the final detail. This is the detail about the existing windows. Typically on this building, they are all single width, double hung windows. There's precedent in order to create more of a visual connection between the exterior and the interior, as we're trying to do on that south upper elevation. The ability to capture the same scale of window and mold them together to create a similar rhythm. It's still going to feel of this building, but it's going to allow us to create more transparency to further celebrate the south wall of this Carnegie. And I guess the other item is that we're intending the new windows to be of modern manufacturer. They're likely going to be aluminum, so they're going to have more crisp edges. So they will, again, from a distance, they will appear, a similar coloration. However, I'm closer and closer to the building, the crispness and more modern architectural design. And we also wanted to note that the interior of the library is going to remain as is. We're removing some of the existing furniture that's loose, but also looking to repurpose it and within that same space. And we're going to be working with the library to figure out their needs for this space for program during operation use, as well as figuring out the opportunities that will open up to the overseas. And so really what this means is all of the casework and trim work around the exterior wall from within that space is going to be preserved. And we'll be looking to reuse as much of the loose furniture as possible, but also understand that we need the space to be flexible, and that table and chairs might need to be something of more of a modular design.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Yeah, I think this might be our planning slide here. Just really, I want to thank all of you again for taking a portion of this meeting to look at the updates that we've done for this project. And I want to give a big thank you to city staff, all the community engagement that we have with the stakeholder group, as well as the friends of the library. The efforts and passion of all these people that really helped lead this first time in design, something that we're really excited to share with you all, and we're excited to hear your thoughts on how the project can progress. And as I say that last thing, one last detail popped into my head, which is the roof of the existing or the new stair and lift portion. Previously, we were thinking about maybe a metal roof of a similar coloration. I think where we're heading towards is a more modern profile clay tile. Again, kind of trying to build off that idea that when you look at the building from afar, it feels very cohesive, but as you get closer and closer, the architectural detailing will be a little sharper and modern. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, and the team at Ratio for all your hard work. I would definitely like to thank you for working with all the stakeholders and all the other members of the community that have voiced concerns about the designs of this very sensitive but very wonderful project. And we are looking forward to moving forward with this in the very near future, since we are not taking public comment on this tonight, and we are not having an open discussion about the designs. We're going to go ahead and thank you again and move on with our next items on our agenda. Questions?
Oh, I think one of the commissioners would like to make a comment. Joy.
No, I think it was covered really well. I had been concerned about what the windows would be like, and it seems like they're going to be modern but still blend in. And then the roof, I was concerned about the materials. I'm not sure metal is historical, but I think that a lot of it was covered. and how to get the mass better in the back of the building and have more opening. So that was all I had.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Porter. Are there any other commissioners that have comments or information? Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Very good. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to new business. Item two, MCAC 2204, material change of appearance certification for new construction at 122 Lovers Lane. Jeffrey Myers is the applicant, and I'm going to ask the commissioners at this point in time if there's any need to recuse himself or ex parte communication or other influences for this MCAC. Okay, we'll go ahead and start off with staff presentation of MCAC 2204. And as you folks do, thanks for your patience with us earlier. Very good.
Good evening, commissioners. First item I'll be presenting tonight is a proposal for new construction in the Upper Washington Historic Subdistrict at 121 Lovers Lane. The applicant is Jeffrey Myers. The applicant requests approval for new construction at 121 Lovers Lane. The proposal features a 2-bedroom, 1.5-story craftsman style construction with storage box space and a 4-tiered engineered retaining wall to achieve local site stability. Due to the steep topography on much of the lot, the construction site is largely obstructed from view from Lovers Lane by dense vegetation and steep slopes, which is what is depicted here. The building site on the first image is beyond the view of the ridge here. And on the second image is sort of tucked behind that ridge back in here. Regarding visibility to Washington Avenue, the site again is below a steep ridge, which is shown here on the left image. The image on the right shows the actual building site. The site plan provided depicts a 38-foot by 38-foot building envelope for the proposed residence, with driveway access off of Lovers Lane and a 4-tiered retaining wall structure to achieve local site stability. The lot is situated in an area of very steep topography, with much of the lot consisting of 30% or greater slopes or no build areas. The proposed building envelope is sited within areas of 17 to 29% slope outside of the no build areas. The driveway was approved and graded under grading permit 2103. The subdivision waiver was granted by the Planning Commission on May 11th this year to allow the encroachment of the retaining walls into that no build area. Both approvals were included in the packet materials for this meeting. The proposed parking area, which is situated to the east of the proposed building envelope, is large enough to accommodate 2 vehicles as required under the code. The proposed home features craftsman style 2-bedroom, 1.5-story single-family residence with lot storage, contained under an 8-12 pitch gable roof with the main bridge running perpendicular to the gable and spacing Lovers Lane and Washington Avenue. The proposed residence consists of a 1,024 square foot footprint within a 1,444 square foot building envelope. That's supposed to be on site plan. The proposed home also features a wraparound porch across the entire south elevation, which is the front elevation, and then halfway around one of the side elevations on the west side, which features a 412 pitch roof sloping downward away from the main residence. 4x4 square wooden posts and 2x2 wooden balusters and railings, composite wood grain decking material. For the actual deck on the porch. The applicant does propose a metal roof that does have an asphalt shingle-like appearance. This was recommended, but not required by the city fire department. They did, however, require an interior sprinkler system. The main siding material is a clapboard lap siding, a 4 to 5-inch reveal, and a wood grain texture. And that's on all the exterior elevations, including the gate lines. The windows featured are 1/1 single-hung windows that divided like grids in pairs around the main level. And then triplet 1/1 single-hung windows are proposed in the upper loft storage areas on the gate lines. Craftsman style front and rear doors with upper rear windows and upper windows containing also divided like grids. And as far as the trim, it's a 1-inch by 4-inch wood trim around the windows, doorways, and building corners, and 2-inch by 8-inch wood fascia around the roof edges, also. Staff notes there is what appears to be a small vinyl sliding window shown on the north elevation, which is associated with the interior bathroom space. The applicant verbally indicated that there are no sliding windows proposed, despite what is shown on the elevation drawing. And he can respond to the window type operation and material proposed for that open. This little window, right. Regarding the proposed building height, the applicant submitted a revised elevation drawing from what was included in the packet materials that shows the proposed building height at 26 feet 6 inches. The staff report stated that this information had not been provided, and staff had performed a rough calculation, and the measurement that staff offered based on the scale on the elevation drawings was approximately 27 feet. But with the revised elevations, that calculation from the applicant was 26 feet 6 inches. The height shown on the revised elevation drawing does not seem to take into account or calculate the average grade from which height is measured under the zoning code. At the time of permitting, those average grade calculations will need to be provided in the actual height calculated from that average grade calculation, rather than from the base of the structure shown on the elevation drawing. But given staff's calculation of the average grade in the staff report, based on the topography shown on the site plan, staff is not concerned that the building height will actually exceed that 26 feet 6 inches. The applicant has also stated the ground will be completely flat in that building envelope, and that the 26 feet 6 inches in height will be the actual height when calculated from that average grade. The applicant can confirm with the podium that is correct. The required maximum height in this zone, which is the general residential zone, is 25 feet. However, the Historic Preservation Commission does have the authority to allow up to an additional 5 feet to incorporate cedar roof edges. And that comes out of our development use standards. The 812 pitch is relatively steep. The staff recommends the commission approve the additional 18 inches in height, not to exceed 26 feet 6 inches, to accommodate the proposed roof and based on the proposed height on the revised elevation drawing. Staff also notes the proposed residence will largely not be visible from the roadways, and the proposed building height will be imperceptible from these vantage points. Regarding the roofing material, The applicant proposes a metal roof that attempts to mimic an asphalt shingle in appearance. The guidelines state that metal roofs were not historically used in Manatee Springs. However, there are now alternative options available that are similar in scale and appearance to asphalt or wood, and are not reflective. The guidelines state that this material may be acceptable. However, reflective standing seam roofs are generally not. The applicant stated he would select a darker or earthier tone for the roof, which is compatible with the design guidelines. Staff again notes that the proposed residence will largely not be visible from the street, so if any portion of the residence was visible, it would likely be the roof. Should the commission not be amenable to the proposed metal roofing material, the applicant has stated he is amenable to installing regular asphalt shingles on the proposed home. The reason for requesting the metal roof is for better wildfire protection. The fire department has required the proposed home to be sprinklered and has recommended but not required this roofing material to better protect the home against fire dangers. Regarding the exterior lighting, although not shown on the elevation drawings, the applicant does propose exterior lighting fixtures adjacent to the front and rear doorways. The fixture proposed is a carriage-style fixture commonly found within the district and within the immediate vicinity, such as at 34 and at 38 Washington, just above. Guidelines call for downcast lighting. Staff notes that elsewhere within the district, this seems to have been achieved via a cloudy or semi-opaque glass shielding on the fixtures that limits any light pass outward. Staff finds the proposed fixture compatible with other homes in the district and recommends the commission apply a condition which requires a cloudy or semi-opaque shielding. Regarding the retaining wall and geohazards, the proposed 4-tier retaining wall is needed to attain global site stability and to provide a safe building envelope for the proposed new residence. Due to the extreme topography on much of the site, the applicant was required to obtain the Tier 3 geologic hazard report and evaluation for the site in conjunction with engineering for the proposed site and retaining wall construction. Both documents were reviewed and approved by Colorado Geologic Survey to ensure that global site stability would be achieved under the proposed designs and engineering. Also, as the proposed walls encroach into the slopes of 30% or greater, the subdivision waiver was also granted by the City Planning Commission on May 11th earlier this year. All of this information has been provided in the meeting packet for the Commissioner's review. Unfortunately, due to engineering reviews and approvals, the design of the retaining wall is very specific in terms of the materials to be used in the construction of the walls themselves. And this sort of limits the possibilities for providing a truly historic appearance to the walls. But the good news is that the site is largely not visible from the roadways. Regarding the engineering for the retaining walls, it specifies a 28-inch ready rock concrete block to be used in the construction, which are shown on the block library sheet provided in the packet materials under the yellow headings. I also have provided that material as is for the commissioners. As this was a specific block used in the approved and engineered designs that were engineered by Mcac, engineering reviewed and approved by Colorado Geologic Survey to attain global site stability. Due to steep topography, the need to provide a safe building envelope, the engineering and Colorado Geologic Survey approval were specific to this block. However, there are textures that can be applied to the blocks that provide an appearance similar to natural stone. The blocks specified can be stamped with the following textures: cobblestone, limestone, kingstone, and ledgestone. So pictured here are the cobblestone and limestone textures, which can be applied to those blocks. The spec sheet for these two textures were provided in the packet materials for the meeting. In the staff report, it was recommended by staff that one of these two textures was preferred, as they seem to be a closer match to the texture of historic Manatee greenstone than the other textures. However, there is a possibility for other textures which may work to replicate a closer match to that texture as well. Shown here are the two alternate textures, the one shown on the previous slide and what was included in the meeting packet, called Kingstone and Ledgestone, which can also be selected for those 28-inch blocks. Staff has provided the spec sheets at the dais, and we're also emailed to the commissioners who are remote. Staff finds that the texture for Kingstone be also similar appearance to the texture of Manatee greenstone. The ledgestone texture appears more angular than the previous textures, but does provide some irregularity in appearance. It makes the blocks seem like multiple stones, as we've seen on the cruise wall. So the image on the left depicts a historic Manatee greenstone wall on Washington Avenue, just above the proposed site. The image on the right depicts colored concrete in the historic districts for the city's approved mix, the manufactured greenstone, and what appears to be sandstone or flagstone. If the commission is not amenable to the color or texture proposed by the applicant or staff, perhaps the color that matched the red soil surrounding the building site would be more appropriate and suitable to the commission. The applicant has proposed to color the concrete in the city's approved color mix and can respond to what texture he's proposing on these walls. Staff recommendations. Staff recommends approval of Mcac 2204 for construction of a new single-family residence and 4 tiered retaining walls at 121 Lovers Lane with the following conditions. 1, wood fiber siding with a 4 to 5 inch reveal shall be used on all exterior elevations on the main level of the gable ends. Final 1/1 single or double hung windows shall be utilized on all elevations, and all divided light windows shall contain exterior grids. 3, the wraparound porch shall be supported by 4x4 wooden posts, and the deck railing shall consist of 2x2 square wooden rails and posts. Decking material for the wraparound porch shall consist of a composite decking material which mimics the wood texture. 5, the trim specifications shall be 1 inch by 4 inch wood trim around the doorways, windows, and building corners. The fascia around the perimeter of the roof edge shall consist of a 2x8 foot fascia board. 5, the driveway shall be paved in either asphalt, colored concrete, or concrete pavers, and shall be colored per the city's approved mix. 6, any concrete or pavers used for walkways, stairs, or steps shall be colored per the city's approved mix. 7, exterior lighting fixtures shall be carriage style fixtures placed adjacent to the front and rear doorways with flat or semi-opaque glass to reduce light pollution and maintain low light levels. 8, retaining walls shall consist of 28-inch ready rock concrete blocks per the requirements set forth in the engineering stamp retaining wall plans dated December 8, 2021, and further revised geologic hazard report dated December 10, 2021. The block shall be integrally colored for the city's approved mix or surrounding soils. 9, the maximum building height shall be added to the building elevations and shall not exceed 26 feet 6 inches in height. 11, the roof material shall be dark and or earth tone and shall be submitted to the planning department for final approval prior to purchase or installation. And 12, the ready rock blocks for the retaining wall shall be integrally colored for the city's. And the following findings. The request is consistent with the purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission. Historic preservation regulations to promote compatible architectural design and infill structures. That concludes that presentation. I'm ready for questions. Commissioner Pat.
Thank you, Sheldon, for that thorough review of the applicant's information. is here to be presented to us. Commissioner, do you have any questions for staff?
Doug, I have a question. Doug?
Commissioner Nichols had her hand up first.
Oh, okay. Just let me know.
Okay, you got it.
So, then when I made this, but when I looked at the one, it's been rough, I didn't see a instruction about what's going to be, what's going to be. What's going to be.
That's a good question. The applicant hasn't
Could you
proposed-
repeat it? Dylan, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was, the driveway goes through a fairly steep area with fairly tall wall. And I didn't see any discussion about what we do.
So under the application, materials provided by the applicant, there's nothing proposed along those walls. Perhaps they can answer that better than they can the podium.
Thank you. Commissioner Porter, do you have a question?
Yes, Dylan, I'm still confused on the height of the building. On the report, you said that it was 23, 24 measured from the average grade by code, or you take the bottom and the top and you come to the middle. And that's less than 25 feet. So I'm not sure why they need to have more than 25 feet. I'm not understanding that.
So what happened is the height calculation was not provided in the original materials that we got from the applicant. So staff did a rough calculation and basically did a rough calculation of the average grade based on the topography on the site plan. And then took the elevation drawings and using the scale provided there, measured from the base to the highest point on the roof. And then the difference between what was shown on the elevation drawings and the calculation for the average grade, that was a rough calculation. Since the information had not been provided or calculated on the materials provided from the applicant. So the applicant did submit a revised elevation drawings that show the height at 26 feet 6 inches. And the applicant also stated that the ground would be completely flat around the building envelope. And has stated that 26 feet 6 inches is the accurate height as will be measured from the average grade according to that. But he can respond to that when he comes to the public.
So the building height could be still 25 feet and they'd have to bring it back when it's more accurate. They would bring it back and it would go to the planning commission and they would approve or disapprove.
Well, what would happen is, so the applicant is requesting that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the additional 18 inches as is under their authority to do in this zone. Without that approval, he's tied to the zoning code restriction of 25 feet. Now, say the commission does approve the additional 18 inches. At the time of building permit, if the applicant's actual calculations show a height that's above that, he's going to have to go to the planning commission for a variance. Anything under that, you would be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Joy, Commissioner Preston, do you have a question?
The question, I missed it, one of the questions you all had was, staff had was, about the materials of the doors, so did you receive additional information from the applicant on that?
Well, I don't know exactly what the material is. They appear to be a wooden craftsman style door with an upper window that contains divided lights. Whether it's a wood or metal, the applicant will have to respond to that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and support the question that Commissioner Legos presented about the stabilization of the driveway walls, the particular excavation. And I would go ahead at this point and say I would approve variance on either of this, but it's considering the challenging topography, its location. I think they're probably fine. Anyhow, well, I feel satisfied. Go ahead and hear from the applicant. Okay, let's go ahead and hear from the applicants. Jeffrey Myers, how are you this evening, sir? If you could give us your full name and address.
Good evening, committee. My name is Jeff Myers. I ran into resident on and off for about 20 years and currently attempting to build my new home at 121 Lovers Lane.
Very good. Do you have anything else to add to staff report, or do you have any statements that would address some of the commissioner's questions?
Probably the biggest one was approximately a year ago, I met when Michelle was still on board with the team here in the department as a director head, and that was when I was told that my only option to build in the historic area with a retaining wall was going to be the red rock system with a color that would real closely simulate Manatee colors, and it actually has been approved and used to the Historic Society for reconstruction and to attempt to support conditions that change over the years. So I didn't really have a lot of choice. That when I did speak with Michelle, she said that I got a documentation in that letter also that Manitoba did suggest that we use a chiseled look to the block so it doesn't look like it's stamped out of a wall. It looks similar to like when you go on Highway 25, Whitman exit, that is Ready Rock wall. The Ready Rock that I'm proposing to use is a chiseled type, so it simulates a real stone. It's the color, it's colored as a Manitoba dirt, so it'll blend in. And it's also going to be just completely covered by my house. So really all that wall is going to do is provide stability to Washington Avenue. It's been kind of a slippery slope for 11 years. And plus, I didn't have any choice. If I was going to build a structure in Manitoba, I had to stabilize the slope. There would be no house to build.
Very good, Mr. Meyer. Is that the Kingstone type Ready Rock they're showing here?
I didn't recognize the Kingstone by name.
Yeah.
I remember I have the documentation. Michelle just referred to it as a chiseled look, so it looks like something that's quarried and like made by time, evolution, as opposed to stamped out of a block, but they all look the same, like it would be a parking lot.
So Bill, can I see presented that information to staff? Do you have that?
The only information I have is on the approved or the engineer's site plan that mentions 28-inch ready blocks. The rest has all been researched by Holt from Ready Rock.
Okay, so I'm going to assume, Mr. Meyer, that the 28-inch ready block that's called out on your engineer specifications is the Ready Rock that we discussed in this and the prior.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Questions as to that retaining wall? Good.
I still have a question about the driveway.
Right now, the driveway is cut in, where it has a bed, contouring. There'll be a little bit more contouring vegetation will take place. There's a lot of bedrock. So even when we get the really belly washers in the last year, the amount of debris that's fallen down has been minimal. So, but once again, once more vegetation, site plan, there's different type of techniques with mesh bolts and anchor mesh to negate vegetation to make it beautiful. Since this is going to be my home, I want it to be as beautiful as possible. Safe. That's really the private drive. You're probably not going to be able to see any part of my house from the road. You're probably not going to be able to see the retaining wall from turning around my property. Once you look out my back door, which is all covered up, the person's going to be able to see my house. It's probably 5 football fields away. On the south side. So,
So do I understand that the answer is that you don't tend to those slopes along the highway?
no, they do. I mean, they're going to be some vinyl contouring. They're going to mesh the bolts, so it is going to be done properly, like the site plan. They call out that there's a mesh webbing and blanket tethered to those slopes, so if I move my truck down there, a rock's not going to hit my truck. I want it to be beautiful. I want to grow some more trees and flowers. And right now, it looks like a wild jumbo in front of it. We're starting to get our rainy season now, so I think
Yeah, to clarify, seeded masters, standard practice, conservation, I think is a concern I have. In my site visit, definitely noticed that a lot of your excavations are directly into the right sense of the bedrock. By nature. So. Very good, okay.
I see. Mr. Myers, I'm just curious, why did you choose a wood grain clapboard as opposed to a smooth clapboard, which tends to be the norm in that historic district?
I would be opposed to any recommendations because I was talking to Dylan about it. I'd be really happy to do a nice rough sawn that would even contribute to the craftsman style because it's once you get back 10 feet from the structure, you're not going to be able to tell what it is, but it's going to have a nice ceiling on it and earth with colors. So I'm not opposed to any recommendations, but I was going to look the best at the materials have not been purchased yet, so whether it be smooth or textured or a rough sign, it will be a 4 or 5 inch profile. It's historically period specific or correct, for the older type of areas.
Great, okay, thank you. I just was curious. So you speak to Bill and said you had mentioned that the north elevation, that rear window in the bathroom is not a sliding window. How is it? Is it going to be a crank or what does it, how does it operate?
Everything in the house is all single story. The only person that's going to see that window is the squirrel walks by my retaining wall. All right, they are all single story. There's no sliders on the walls.
Okay, all right. And so just to verify, your exterior doors are wood? Okay. And
the only thing I might change is that if I would get a better deal on simulated fiberglass, that if you go back 1 foot, you wouldn't be able to tell the wood from the fiberglass. And sometimes they'll last longer on the elements. They won't be burnt colors or they'll be dull in colors, so there won't be any reflection or just like when you make mentions of the roofing materials, there won't be any shiny that can cause any reflection to shine into a neighbor's window across the, so those are all considerations that we take into consideration.
okay. Wood is our preference in that historic district if possible. on the doors, generally speaking. And I noticed that the staff recommended painting the background of the lower level of the lattice work a darker color. Are you okay with that? Oh, that's a recommendation. Okay. And you already mentioned that you said you'd be okay if the commission wanted asphalt shingles as opposed to metal roof. You'd be okay with that?
When I first met with the fire department, and they said since they're not in my driveway, they're not gonna be able to get the ladder truck up there, so Dylan did mention that they're also gonna require me to put a fire hydrant at the bottom of the hill. So we can access my home with a fire hose, since the ladder truck will make a lot of houses in Manatee. So I really would like to go the metal route because of what you said, if I can right down my roof, and another roof, it's gonna go out a second, so they're not gonna have to put fire out another roof, and you can't tell that it's not another roof, it's so beautiful, it looks just like an asphalt.
And just a quick question about the safety railings that were in the design drawings, schematics for the retaining wall. Are those required for some reason, and what's their purpose?
I don't know, I know the engineer put those on, but they probably didn't know what was gonna go, because you're not gonna be able to see my retaining wall from Washington, which is on the side of my property. So I think the railing was so someone would walk off of Washington and stumble. And I'm gonna have a fence up there, and a garden up there, so I wouldn't be opposed to that railing at all.
I couldn't figure out what it'd be doing since it's your property and people are not gonna be walking along the wall. So, okay, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. One thing I was gonna add too, when you talked about, or when I think Dylan had mentioned in regards to the elevation, my site right now shows a slight slope if you look up there, but in the building, when the foundation goes in, there won't be any average elevation. It's all gonna be the same number, whether it's the right front corner, the left front corner, the rear, it's all gonna be on level ground, which Sheldon had no reference to.
Okay, well, I believe we've heard all the questions by the commissioners. Right, okay. Susan, Commissioner Cressy brought up some of the points that I was thinking about, also myself. It sounds like there was a recommendation for smooth fiber siding versus wood grain, and the wood doors versus a composite material. And I also had questions about the roofing material. The roof material mimics the composites, cedar ridge type of shingles we're used to seeing on most homes. I think that's in the spirit of fire suppression and environmental impact, which has become called probably more and more in the code as we move along through the years. I would like to possibly see that. There's a very good possibility. I will be entertaining metal roof in my building since it's more durable and sort of also. And the wind's just there might possibly car. So they can't be working. So if the metal roofing is truly that good mimics the asphalt shingles.
I think so. Here's risk. I mean, I know we're reason to see this structure that much, but then it becomes an opportunity for others to ability to say this. I've not seen these shingles, so I don't know how close to asphalt shingles are meant to be.
I would be happy to submit a sample of that so you can tell that we have one line next to it. Anyway, it's tough to tell. They're beautiful. They're only 50 years. They won't touch my
new technology.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. I think that's, with the initial law. Definitely feel that. There's technologies and
Doug, are we in the discussion part yet, or are we still questioning the applicant?
We'll be ready to move into that, right? I just wanted to make sure that the questions that were posed, that were presented by the commissioners, have been addressed thoroughly to the applicant, and I'm going to go ahead and thank the applicant for coming up. And we'll be closing that. We're going to go to the open hearing part of this MCAC, and I will be asking folks who are in attendance, there are statements in favor of the applicant's MCAC to either enter on Zoom or to come to the podium.
Let's see.
Okay, do we have anybody in attendance in the audience that would like to make any comments as far as favor of this particular project? Okay, how about anybody in opposition of this particular project, CAC?
Doug, are you asking me? Are you asking the commission now or the public? I'm confused.
No. That's where we're at.
Where are we? Because I can't understand it.
Right now, I've asked the public, I have asked for public comments and inputs, and thus far we have heard from no one either in the audience or in Zoom attendance.
Okay.
Okay. So therefore, if we have no public comment, I don't believe there's any reason we need to have the applicant for rebuttal. I will close the open hearing public part of the hearing. And then commissioners, you want to go ahead and have a quick discussion about some of the items that we want to talk about? Mr. Presley, do you feel satisfied with recommendations?
I would like to request that the actual block it's going to be chosen, the actual name of it to be supplied to the staff prior to construction or purchase of the block. Just confirm that that's good.
Commissioner Wright.
I can't hear what she's saying.
One of you within 3 inches or so from it.
Okay. No, it's a very clean application. All of it looks really great. I was able to stand above the site and look down. I was shocked that there was that much land, so much bigger and just flat. I originally, when we first got the application, I was like, how are they going to attach the house to the hill? And then I saw it was actually a full lot there. And so kudos to Mr. Myers for finding that lot. Everything looks great. The height, as long as it is not over that 25 feet and nobody's impacted, I don't see a problem. Metal roof, I've seen those, they look great. I can see that becoming a trend with the aspects. And if the concrete's the color of the soil, go in for the red, because there's a lot of red dirt there. It'll be staining whatever he tries to do anyway. So all of it looks great. I'm ready. I generally agree. I think the staff's recommendations with Susan's indication that the staff would approve the texture of the ready lock blocks. I think it's correct. And I'm fine with the no more than 27 feet.
I can't understand. Dylan, could she speak closer? I have no idea what she said.
Really?
Yeah. I was trying to hear it, but it's all garbled and,
If I get any closer, I'm gonna have it in my mouth.
well, I don't want that.
So in general, can you hear me now, Joy?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, what I said was I support the metal roof, I support no higher than 27 feet. The smooth wood siding in general, I support staff recommendations.
Okay. I would just say that I just think that the metal roof, I would prefer to have the asphalt shingles up there rather than a metal roof. I think the metal roofs aren't really around in our district. And then to introduce it, then any construction or any construction could say we want metal roofs, even in the log cabin. So I'm a little bit concerned about setting the precedence about having a metal roof. I understand about fire, but I just am concerned about that.
Yeah, and I would point out that there is a metal roof on Washington, if I'm not mistaken, that's we approved a number of years ago. So I think we don't approve them all the time, but there are instances where we have obviously approved them.
And this profile of this metal is just like a regular tin roof. I mean, profile is mimics of the material. That's the whole key of the environment.
Commissioners, we agreements. Some of our issues here, so I will say a quick statement that I believe that in the very near future, despite historic guidelines, we very well may be looking at the use of certain materials due to wildfire and other safety mitigation issues. But I'm going to ask one of the commissioners to make a motion to approve MCAC 2204 with the verification of the retaining block to be provided to staff, the smooth siding, fiber siding, the wood doors, and then I think there is a unanimous agreement or an agreement that the metal roofing material could be allowed for this particular build at this time. And do I have a commissioner that will make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I can second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please, we have 4-1 with Commissioner Porter rescinding. And thank you very much. We will go on to our next MCAC. Congratulations, Mr. Meyer. We'll be talking with Dylan and getting your final approvals so we can move on to planning commission and permitting. Okay, now we're going to item 3, MCAC 2208, material change of appearance, certification, new construction, 170 Shelton Road, Mitchell Katsa, applicant on behalf of Peter Katsa, owner. I'm going to ask commissioners if there is any need to recuse. Okay, I will make the statement that I recused myself from the original hearing for Peter's build because I was involved in his design and his application with the city at that time. And from what I understand, that they decided not to build that original structure. And so this application is new to me, and so is the material or the structure they plan on putting in. So I'm just going to sit here and do my job and make an objective decision on the application as presented. Okay, staff presentation of MC 2208. Please.
Hello again, commissioners. The second item I'm presenting tonight is a proposal for new construction in the Keithley Log Cabin Subdistrict at 170 Shelton Road. The applicant is Mitchell Casa on behalf of owner Peter Katsa. The applicant requests approval of material change repair certification for construction at 170 Shelton Road. It's correct on my screen, so I don't know. Yeah. We'll try again. I wouldn't have caught that because it was right on my screen. So the proposal features a two-story log cabin design with an integrated garage on the lower level, which is accessed on one of the side elevations via a driveway on Sheldon Road. The proposed residence also features a rear covered deck. The site plan provided by the applicant depicts a foundation footprint of 720 square feet, situated approximately 20 feet 4 inches from the front property line, which is itself set back about 5 to 10 feet from the actual edge of Shelton Road. The site plan also indicates a covered rear deck measuring approximately 20 feet by 12 feet and 2 retaining walls on site. Following correspondence with the applicant indicated the larger wall shown running behind the proposed residence on the site plan would be significantly reduced from what is shown on that site plan. And would be more akin to sort of a landscaping in terms of armoring the slope where needed, and would consist of no more than a 6 to 8 foot long dry stacked wall, not exceeding 4 feet. The other retaining wall is located adjacent to the proposed entryway on the east elevation. The applicant has indicated that neither wall will be visible from Shelton Road. The proposed home features a 2-story single-bedroom house with a small footprint at 720 square feet. There's approximately 670 square feet of living space above an integrated single-car garage and bathroom on the lower level. The proposed residence is sited approximately 20 plus feet from Shelton Road at the closest point with the widest elevation. That's the south elevation running parallel to Shelton Road, which maintains that horizontal emphasis in relation to the road. The home shows 2 small covered porches on the side elevations with log columns that are sitting on stone piers, which match the foundation cladding around the perimeter of the proposed residence. The porch floors for those entryways are grade level, so there are no railings proposed or required. A covered deck is shown on the rear elevation. Any views from the street of the deck are minimal, but do show round log posts and railings with round log balusters. Stone cladding wraps around the foundation. A light tan stone wainscot profile is shown in the material sheet, which tends to match the surrounding soils. The materials proposed are rounded hand-hewn log siding on the main building walls, around the structure, vertical board and batten siding in the gables, and upper level deck area on that rear elevation. Let's see, the HBC has approved both full log construction and wooden or metal log siding in the past. It was determined a number of years ago that the appearance of log siding from the street was acceptable to maintain the character of the area. The HBC has not required all new homes to be full log structures because of the additional options available. It's staff's opinion that the hand-hewn rounded log siding that allows for chinking is an acceptable alternative to full logs. Under the current proposal, the applicant has not proposed chinking between the siding. And there are actually several examples within the district that of homes that do not have the chinking between the logs. Examples of that would be 173 and 179 Shelton Road, which are in the immediate vicinity. The guidelines call for a log cabin appearance on all elevations visible from the road. Therefore, staff is not concerned with the board and batten siding material being utilized in the upper area of that rear deck on the rear elevation, because it's not visible from Shelton Road. The board and batten proposed for the gable ends is fairly typical in this district. The application proposes the use of a cultured stone around the perimeter foundation in a color that closely matches the surrounding soil in the area. It is consistent with the design guidelines. Round wooden timber posts are featured in the porch areas, supporting small covered entryways on the east and west elevations, and in supports for the rear deck and roof covering set in stone pier foundations, clad in stone material that matches the foundations. The applicant proposes a log style railing on that rear deck, which is consistent with other deck railings in the district. The windows proposed are a dark colored vinyl, and this material has been accepted previously on new log cabin projects in the area and in new homes throughout the district. However, if the proposed material is not found to be acceptable to the commission, staff recommends the use of a solid wooden frame window or a material which mimics the wood appearance, either in design or clad. The windows on the front elevation appear to be 1-over-1 single hung windows with divided light grids. These windows are also utilized on the side elevations on the east and west elevations, along with what appear to be single pane windows. Staff is not sure whether the single pane windows are casement windows or whether they're static or how they operate. The applicant can respond to the manner of operation regarding those large single pane windows. Staff finds that the static or casement windows are acceptable for the guidelines and other previous approvals within the district. Just the sliding windows are not. The applicant has indicated a 1-inch by 4-inch and 1-inch by 6-inch hand-hewn wood trim would be used around the windows and doorways, and it would be stained a dark brown color to match the siding. Staff finds the proposed trim is appropriate in the district and will maintain the log cabin appearance. The proposed porches and entryways are sited on the sides, on the east and west of the structure, facing the adjacent properties, which is not typical within the district. However, staff does find there are examples of this in the immediate area, such as 173 and 179 Shelton Road, which have main entrances on the side elevations as well. The proposed entrances on the east and west facades would be visible from Shelton Road. Staff is comfortable with the proposed orientation as there is a precedent for doing so in the immediate vicinity. The proposed details and features are simple and visually compatible with surrounding development of historic structures within the district, in large part with the exception of the side entryway rather than on the front facade. The use of varied sizes and patterns of divided light windows and single light windows provides interest, but still provides detailing that's more typical of this building style and common within the district. Regarding the front or the entryways, the front entrance is oriented facing east on one of the side elevations. Again, that's not typical within the district, which usually has street-facing entrances. However, staff finds there are examples of this in the immediate area, 173 and 179 Shelton Road, which are shown in the images here. The commission will need to determine whether this orientation is acceptable given the precedent and examples shown in the figures following the staff report. Should the commission not be amenable to this orientation, staff recommends asking the applicant whether the front entrance doorway can be relocated to the front facade around the corner from where it's currently proposed. Relocation of that entryway door to the front elevation on the lower level may prove it feasible, and that's because the actual floor level is below the exterior grade on the front facade. Due to this, may not be able to fit in the entryway there at the lower level. Alternatively, it may be possible to introduce a second story entrance on the front facade that would be accessed by stairs. But the applicant can respond to the feasibility of these alternatives and the necessity for the proposed location and orientation as proposed. Staff is comfortable with the proposed orientation as there is precedent for doing so in the immediate vicinity. Regarding the site plan, the topography, and what's depicted on the site plan is 30% or greater slopes. The current site plan depicts the back deck and retaining walls encroaching into areas that are delineated as 30% or greater slopes. The image on the left depicts the area in red that on the site plan that shows the 30% or greater average slope. The image on the right depicts the current plat of the lot under Sheldon Hills re-subdivision number 1061, and that was filed with El Paso County in 1949. Staff is unsure how the areas of 30% average slope are calculated or determined on the site plan. The slopes of 30% or greater are considered no-build areas, and those are determined through our subdivision process, in which elevations are required to be physically shot at 2-foot intervals, and areas of 30% or greater slope actually called out on the subdivision plat. Ben's data has been proven to be inaccurate in our area in terms of topography, which is why the city requires elevations to be physically shot on site to determine these areas. The applicant would respond to how these areas were determined on the site plan, because they were determined through the subdivision process. The subdivision code defines no-build areas as portions of the site designated on a plat, which due to steep terrain or significant natural features of vegetation shall not be built upon, including no alteration of the site through pest spills or any construction in the development activity. This property was platted into a whole single lot prior to this requirement in the subdivision process, which means that there are no platted, no-build areas that encumber the lot on the plat. And that there is no requirement to replat the property because it's already a whole platted lot, and there are no further applications through the planning commission required as part of this proposal. Staff is currently researching and determining whether a subdivision waiver can be required or approved if the site plan, the building permit, which requires contour intervals at 2 feet to be shown with areas of 30% or greater slope depicted, does show no build areas, as depicted on the site plan that was provided, despite there being no plat associated that delineate those no build areas. Subdivision waiver regulations state that submittal of a request for waiver shall accompany the plat in which the waiver addresses. Since there is no plat to associate the waiver to, staff is unsure whether one can be required. However, the waiver regulations also state in section 1616.040A3 that waivers shall not be granted for mitigation requirements associated with natural hazard risk reduction and mitigation conditions pursuant to chapter 1810. So as part of the permitting process, an applicant is required to submit a code compliant site plan with areas containing slopes of 30% or greater called out, as well as geologic hazards report, which has been provided by the applicant. The natural hazard risk reduction mitigation regulations, that's section 1810. Under the limits of disturbance section states that no build areas, limits of disturbances shall not include slopes greater than 30%. Limits of disturbance is then defined as the area of site that may be disturbed by grading, clearing of vegetation, or other earth movement or development activities, such as construction of buildings or structures, driveways, parking, roads, drainage, or stormwater facilities, and or other improvements in facilities. Staff is unsure exactly what is proposed regarding the retaining walls in terms of their configuration, or whether they will actually retain any earth or are standalone walls or for aesthetic purposes. It does appear that at least two of the posts related to the covered deck would also encroach into these no build areas depicted on the site plan. So the applicant will need to respond to how these areas of 30% or greater slope were determined on the site plan, what the purpose of the retaining walls are, where they will be located, and what, if any, of the deck posts will be located in these areas. If it is determined by staff that no subdivision waiver can be required without an associated plat, as seems to be the case, this would mean that no encroachments into these areas would be permitted at the time of building permit. If those areas depicted do in fact represent actual slopes of 30% or greater. Other alternatives, this being the case, would be for the applicant to propose no encroachments in these areas on the final site plan to be used for the issuance of the building permit, either by reconfiguring the deck to ensure that the supports are outside of those areas, removing any retaining walls in those areas, especially if not needed to support the development, or to replat the property as zone free low demolition to efficiently plat those no build areas with an associated subdivision request to allow those encroachments. Yet a third option would be to shift the entire development slightly to the west to move the deck posts outside of those areas. The applicant can respond to the feasibility of any of these options or what is planned. Regarding the geologic hazards, the report which was created in November 2021 for the previous design and was approved by the HPC indicates steeper slopes along the northern portion of the lot with gradual to moderate slopes on the remainder. And the proposed building site will slope gradually towards the north. The report indicates there are no expansive soils, no loose or collapsible soils, and no artificial fill around or found during testing. But it does indicate the possibility for downslope creep, particularly on the northern steeper portions of the lot. And that's what's pictured in the image above, beyond that black line of those steeper slopes so that that creep may be possible. The report states the current slopes are stable, but have the potential for movement if saturated or improperly drained. The report recommends mitigation by draining the swales to carry runoff offsite in a non-erosive manner, xeriscaping or native plantings, and revegetation to minimize cooling and reduce erosion. So an erosion and drainage control plan will be required at the time of building permit. Staff's recommendations. Staff recommends approval of MCAC 2208 for construction of a single-family residence at 170 Shelton Road with the following conditions. 1, rounded log siding shall be used on all exterior elevations, excluding the gable ends, foundation walls, and upper level deck area on the rear of the residence. 2, board and batten siding shall be utilized on the gable ends and upper deck area on the rear of the residence. 3, all divided light windows shall contain exterior grids. 4, the rear deck shall be supported by round log posts. The deck railing shall consist of log rails and posts. 5, trim specifications shall be 1x4 stone 1x6 and even wood stain to match the log siding. 6, the driveway shall be paved with either asphalt, colored concrete, or concrete pavers per the planning department approval. Any concrete or pavers used for walkways, stairs, or steps shall be colored per the city's approved mix or as approved by the planning department. 8, stone specifications and samples shall be submitted for administrative approval prior to the purchase or installation. Specifications for the material profile and mortar color shall be submitted for administrative approval prior to purchase and installation. 9, exterior lighting fixtures shall be downcast and provided for administrative review and approval prior to purchase and installation, and with the following finding. The request is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations to promote compatible architectural design within both structures. And that concludes the presentation. I'm available for questions if commissioners have.
Thank you, Dylan. At this time, I'm going to ask that if any of the commissioners have questions for Dylan and his report on AC 2208.
Doug, I have a question. Can
Go
I
ahead.
ask?
Commissioner Porter.
Okay, Dylan, could you explain a little bit? It's approved in the no build zone, you know, I understand all that. But the pilings for the porches are going to be in it or they're not going to be in it? I was confused.
So what's depicted on the site plan, that rear deck, it appears that at least 2 of the posts that support that rear deck, covering over it, encroach into that area that's depicted on the site plan as 30% grade slopes. But without the topography shown on the site plan, it's unclear how those no-build areas were determined, also because that's determined through the subdivision process, and the current existing plat does not call out those no-build areas. There's a question as to whether those no-build areas are actually no-build areas, and if they are, basically because there's not an associated plat to go with the subdivision waiver to encroach into no-build areas. So say the request was approved as presented. If they came to pull a building permit for what's proposed, anything in those no-build areas you wouldn't be allowed to build anything on them. You have to place the posts in them or the retaining walls without subdivision. So without an associated plat to go with the subdivision waiver, we wouldn't be able to approve any encroachment into those no-build areas if they do in fact, they are no-build areas. Part of the hazard mitigation and risk reduction regulations, basically when they state, so at the time of building permit, they have to present a compliant site plan that shows the topography and those no-build areas. Without a subdivision waiver, basically they can't approach into the no-build areas.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner.
Dylan, as a follow-up to that, do I understand that it's not really the responsibility of this commission to determine whether this design is going to be allowed? Because there's a possibility of the no-build, or encroaching on the no-build, that was small to the planning department.
Yeah, so given some of the topography on the lot, the commission is only looking at the design. That information was basically provided because it's shown on the site plan and could impact the design of that rear deck and those retaining walls essentially.
Okay, so that means that even if we approve this plan and it is not allowed through the permitting process, it would have to come back to us for reapproval.
So the way the conditions are, it wouldn't have any impact on the way the conditions are proposed by staff in the staff report or in the presentation. Basically, they have to sure.
So for the record, can abandon lighting required from the city planning department. What's within the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission is exactly what's in front of you, and that's the build as it's currently proposed. And if we were to find at a future step that there was a requirement for a subdivision waiver, we would address it at that time, which then may be coming back to the Historic Preservation Commission. But for tonight, what's within the board's purview is exactly what's before you tonight. So we don't necessarily need to determine if something is actually eligible for construction at this point.
Clarification.
And thank you, Hannah. So I assume at this point from the comments from the commissioners that we have no more questions for staff concerning this MCAC, and we can go ahead and bring up the applicant, Mr. Katsa. And please state your full name and place of residence, and anyone else who may be in attendance.
My name is Katsa. I reside at 1322 White House Drive, Pleasant Valley. I grew up in the west side of Manitoba Springs. Our designer, Glenn. My
Well, thank you, Mitch. It's good to see you, and I've heard some of the comments. Obviously, the most outstanding concern is about the potential administrative subdivision waiver or addressing the no-build zone outside of that. Any more questions for you, Commissioner? Do you have questions?
Okay, one question, just if you would mind addressing the feasibility of locating the door on the front elevation, since the staff brought it up. I would your evaluation of that possibility.
Of relocating the front door. As stated, the finished floor foundation will be sunk about 5 feet. This will cause problems architecturally. Bringing the entrance, it will be about 5 feet above the floor of the house. And considering the style of the neighborhood, having doors not facing the road, and then with our designs incorporating a simulated shed extension patio, like you see so often in the district, I thought this was fitting.
Thank you.
Commissioner, any other questions?
How are the windows? What are you using for the windows? It sounded like you were putting wood around it and they were vinyl windows. Is that correct?
Per budget limitations and energy codes, we'd like to stick to vinyl windows that mimic a wooden frame.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, these are besides the vinyl being wood and location of the front door, the commissions have satisfied our questions. I can guarantee you that all the houses that my great grandparents lived in, a little better for the front doors with great approaches, and everybody came in through the kitchen. So that's my statement for that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go into the open hearing. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming up. And I think that we will entertain statements in favor of MCAC 2208. Yes. So do we have anyone in the audience or anyone in attendance via Zoom that may have any comments in favor of MC 2208?
I don't see any.
Okay, very good. Then I'm going to ask if there are any statements in opposition to MC 2208. I see some hands in the audience. Okay, gentlemen, would you like to come up and introduce yourselves and let us voice your concerns?
This is probably more on than against, but let me just preface my statements with that. My name is Perry Fowler. My family is property 169 Shelton Road. My great grandfather built the property. We've owned it for over 75 years. My family's been coming to Manatee for over 100 years. I reside in Austin, Texas. I've been coming here for 48 years of my life. This neighborhood, this community is very special to me and my family and all of our extended family that enjoy the cabin and try to maintain it in its original state here for some time. I guess a few things I wanted to share with the commission this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. First, I'm sorry I didn't have to be here at all. And I've met Mitch before, and I've met his father, and they seem like nice folks. You know, the first design that was proposed for this property was completely unacceptable. It was not in the character of the neighborhood. I'm glad that it's changed. Mr. Chairman, I was aware that you were the designer apparently of that. Is that correct? Or what you said something?
No, I just, I had assisted them with the design. My connection is that you keep the cabin complex that for my great grandfather.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, the court.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I just didn't understand the context of your refusal or non-refusal, so I just kind of, I didn't understand that. You know, we like to maintain the character of the neighborhood. Where this house is proposed, again, this area has never been developed, and the reason why primarily is because when you go over there, you go about 20 feet out and you go straight down the hill. It's a bunch of scrub brush, basically. And I welcome the idea of having neighbors there, but I am very concerned about the setback, I'm concerned about drainage, I'm concerned about fire issues, all these types of things. And I just hope that as a commission that y'all do take these issues seriously, and I'm quite certain that you do. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I know that other neighbors have concerns about this property, and I would like to see it be able to move forward to their satisfaction so they can have a home there. I don't care about door alignment or windows or anything like that. I want good neighbors and I want good houses built that are within the character of the community. So that's our primary concern. I think the topography issue might be challenging for them, but obviously that's outside of their purview, and I really don't have anything to say about that. So that's effectively what I wanted to share this evening. You know, we're going to continue to monitor what's going on. I hope they can move forward with their project successfully. And be respectful of the neighborhood and the existing neighbors there and the properties that are there. I actually kind of love having a building there because it might mitigate some of the sound coming off the 24 coming up the highway. But I do think it's going to have a profound impact on the character of the hillside and wildlife and all these other things. You know, it's just kind of part of the deal, it's part of progress. But anyway, I'm sure y'all are going to do a very thorough job vetting this. I'm sure that my other neighbors, some of whom are here that have also been there an equally long time, have similar concerns, but at least from my perspective now, the fact that we're only going to be looking at a single story property that will have the garage down the hill is much better than what was previously proposed. And I don't know if y'all have questions for me. You know, funny enough, that section across the street from us is the only part of our property that does not have trees. Basically, you know, we can see the garden of guys up front, I speak, kind of in the back. And every day over here, he's right next door to us, and we always got along, our families got for years, even though they were from home, I think. Yeah. Initially, and we're from Texas, but anyhow. Do y'all have any questions for me?
So, wait, so you do like this proposal? This one you hated, this one you do like?
This one is much better than the first one. The first one was completely unacceptable. It was totally outside the character of the neighborhood. There's a 2-story garage being proposed that would be right across the street from our property, in addition to the house. This, I don't have a problem with this design. I just wanted to note our concerns with regard to how this process works. And I've got other concerns about short-term rentals. I hope they're not going to use this property for that. You know, which is not your purview. You know, and I'm saying it's their property. You know, they have the right to do what they want to with it. I just want to make sure this has been the character of the neighborhood. I think that's the concerns that everybody has that owns property. it's adjacent to and close to it. So,
We have lived and breathed this neighborhood every 6 months, at least, this neighborhood comes at us with something.
it's a unique
And
small
I
order.
knew Leonard from Texas. My mother lived at 192 Shelton. This neighborhood we care deeply about, so, you know, I hope you understand it.
No, I appreciate that very much.
We definitely, we put our heart into this and that. I really appreciate personally of you coming tonight.
Sure.
It's important for us to hear from the neighbors.
Well, I'm glad we're here. This place is very special to us.
Also, drainage is a big deal to me, because I live below a lot of this that goes on, and they will be having to file, how much water will be coming down the hill. That's all part of this. I'm so glad that stormwater has been added into.
Yeah, I mean, it's anyway, I'm not, those words for that, so I'm not going to make it's not that season. I do appreciate the consideration. And, yeah, I've had a successful bill, but it's, you know, got concerns, change is always interesting, you know, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, and now, do we have any other comments from the public? And if you do come up, could you please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes? Yes, sir.
Y'all can give me a stop loss the first time, I would.
I'll keep it short.
Sorry, Dylan, I just have a quick question. Sorry, can you hear me? Is it possible to turn Judy's camera so we can see the commission members or who is speaking?
Yeah,
Or is it intentionally faced towards the screen?
Is that better?
Yeah,
Okay, thank
it's not super helpful, but thank you.
Introduce yourself, sir, and introduce your place of residence.
My name is Todd Barnhart. I live at 10 Short Road in Manatee Springs. Family has been there since 1927. That's 95 years. The same family in the same home. We are concerned about the neighborhood, and I look at this proposal and I see a 2-story house. I thought cabins and log cabins were supposed to be 1 story. What's going on? As far as the log siding, the adjacent properties to this proposal have both whole log and half log. So why should there be any artificial log put on this cabin? Those are my comments, limited to 3 minutes. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Do we have any other comments in the audience or via Zoom?
Let's see, I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Well, I am going to go ahead and close the public comments section of the hearing. Commissioners, you've heard some of the concerns of neighbors, and we've also discussed with the staff of other concerns that seem to be fairly limited. Do we have any further comments or concerns that we would like to address for this MCAC 2208?
The only reason why I'm okay with this design is that I think that visually it's going to appear as 1 story. I have had some time, because it seems like a couple of properties on Shelton that we bought were going to be 1 stories and they huge. And but I do think this one is going to be tucked down a little bit more. I disagree, but I don't know where else is going to put a garage.
Commissioner Porter, do you have any further comments or concerns?
I just, I know that windows may not be a concern, but I'm always concerned in this district that we have vinyl and not wood. It sounds like they're going to disguise it, but I'm always concerned when the materials on the cabin are going to be vinyl. I understand about the cost, but I always have how they are and how they open and how they blend into the district. It's important for the look of everything, but I don't have, other than that, I don't have anything really to address, and some of the stuff is outside our purview of what we can address.
Okay, very good. Well, I heard, again, a concern for the windows. I do believe that the applicant staff said that the windows, even though they are vinyl, are going to be of darker color, simulated wood style. And Ms. Barnhart, just wanted to remind you that the exterior of the building is going to be, even though it's half log, it's still real wood, log type construction. So that's in keeping with other buildings that we've approved recently, including an addition on one down the street from y'all and one that's right next door to me. So if we have no further comments or discussions on MCAC 2208, I will entertain a motion. And I don't know if there's any other recommendation that go with that motion.
I review approval of NCAC 2208 for material change for parent certification for new construction at 170 Shelton Road based on the findings of the request and the review criteria and with staff conditions as outlined in our. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
CAC 2208 passes unanimously, and thank you very much for your patience. It is 20 minutes after 8, and I appreciate everyone's patience this evening, particularly with staff. I know it's been a very long day. We're going to go ahead and keep moving forward to MCAC 2209, material change of appearance certification, exterior alterations for 718 and 720 Manatee Avenue. Shimmy Shlomo applicants, and do we have any commissioners that need to recuse themselves from this particular hearing? That is it. Okay, staff presentation, please, Dylan.
The final item we'll be considering this evening is a proposal for exterior alterations in a commercial core subdistrict at 718, 720 Manatee Avenue. The applicant is Shimmy Shlomo on behalf of SD Properties LLC. The applicant requests approval of an NCAC for exterior alterations. Both 718 and 720 Manatee are contained on the same lot. However, 718 Manatee is considered a non-contributing resource in the district, while 720 Manatee Avenue is considered a contributing resource under the 1991 resource inventory reports, which were included in the packet materials. The site plan depicts the proposed layout for 718 and 720 Manatee. There are no changes to the building footprints proposed. However, the expanded outdoor dining area associated with restaurant use of 718 Manatee Avenue is shown on the east side of the lot. Under this proposal, the proposed outdoor dining area would measure approximately 454 square feet. The proposal features at 720 Manatee Avenue, that's the building on the left, the elevation in the rendering here. The applicant proposes replacement of the existing stucco that's on the front of the building. There's no expansion of the existing stucco area is proposed. and then siding replacement on the east and west elevations. The applicant proposes replacement of a board and batten style siding on both the side elevations on 720 Manatee Avenue. The replaced with an LP smart sign with a cedar texture and a lap pattern. It has a 10 3/4 inch reveal and a 1x4 LP smart trim around the windows. Replacement of original 1/1 double hung wooden window on the upper floor of the east elevation is proposed with a vinyl 1/1 double hung. The previous owner had replaced the front four windows without the approval of the Historic Preservation Commission sometime between June of 2018 and August of 2021. We gathered that from Google Street View images. The original windows appear to be a solid wood 1/1 double hung, which were replaced by vinyl 1/1 double hung windows sometime during that period. The applicant seeks approval to replace the existing window on the east upper elevation at 720 to match those four windows on the front facade and the upper level. No exterior alterations to the building detailing, finishing, or fenestrations is proposed. Regarding 718 Manatee Avenue, which is the one-story building adjacent to it, the application proposes an expansion to the footprint and raising the outdoor patio and dining area to street level and extending back towards the creek. It also proposes a new doorway providing direct access from the restaurant to the outdoor patio and dining area. The image on the far left shows the existing board and batten siding on the west elevation, which is in a fairly poorly weathered condition at this point. The images to the right depict the west elevation in rendering with the proposed replacement. Shown here is the elevation drawing and rendering for the east facing sides of the proposed alterations. The image depicts the proposed outdoor dining area expansion and the new entryway at 718 Manatee Avenue, as well as the upper level of 720 Manatee Avenue, which is proposed for the siding and window replacement. Staff is aware that some of the work regarding this proposal has already occurred. The upper portion on the east elevation for 720 Manatee Avenue has already had the siding removed and replaced, as well as the upper window on the east elevation without permitting or HDC approval. A stop work order was issued by the city's neighborhood services officer pending the outcome of this hearing. As the work was initiated prior to any approvals and if the materials are unaltered by the commission in the hearing, and after the fact permit will need to be issued regarding the materials already used at 2 times the use tax and the $150 late fee as required under code. The remaining materials not yet used, or if the commission alters the materials proposed, will be permitted at the normal rate. The 1991 resource inventory report indicated the 4 upper front windows were originally 1/1 double hung rather than vinyl. Staff did some research and discovered the original wood windows had been replaced by the previous owner sometime between June of 2018 and August of 2021 without any approvals or permitting. This is not the fault or doing of the applicant or current owner who purchased the property earlier this year in 2022. Staff notes that aside from the material, the manner of operation, design, and general appearance of the windows has remained largely intact despite the unauthorized replacements. Although the previous replacements were not authorized and their present existence is not justification for allowing the window replacement on the east facade with a similar window. Staff finds the existing windows were only minimally impactful to the significance of the resource as a whole. Therefore, staff recommends, if acceptable to the commission, the vinyl window be approved as proposed on the east facade of the building to match the current windows on the front facade. Alternatively, the commission could require cladding on the windows, which gave the appearance of a wood window. This image shows the replacement window already installed in the east elevation, which was done under the current ownership. It appears to be a vinyl 1/1 single or double hung window to match the four windows which were replaced without approval on the upper level of the front facade. This image also shows the proposed siding and trim as it would appear in place as well. Staff was provided a sample of the siding material by the applicant, which I accidentally left in my office. But good grab if so desired. The image on the left depicts the current existing outdoor dining area, which is accessed via a small gate onto the sidewalk on Manatee Avenue. Under the current configuration, there is non-direct access from the interior of the restaurant area to that outdoor dining area. Patrons actually have to exit the main entrance onto Manatee Avenue, walk down the front of the building and into the dining area via the small gate. The outdoor dining area is also slightly below the grade of Manatee Avenue. The proposed expansion of the outdoor dining area will bring the floor to the grade of Manatee Avenue and allow for additional outdoor seating for patrons. The stairs leading to the lower storage area and basement remain in place and travel underneath the deck on the proposed expansion. The expansion would also allow a new access and doorway, providing direct access from the interior of the restaurant space to the outdoor dining area. And the proposed placement of the new doorway coincides with an existing opening for a window, which would be expanded to accommodate that new access. Staff's recommendations. Staff recommends approval of NCAC 2209 for exterior alterations at 718 and 720 Manatee Avenue with the following conditions. 1, the exterior siding on the east and west elevations of 720 Manatee Avenue shall consist of 12-inch LT smart side lap siding with a cedar texture and 10 3/4 inch reveal. 2, exterior trim materials shall consist of the 1x4 LT smart trim, also with a cedar texture on the east and west elevations of 720 Manatee Avenue. 3, window replacement on the east elevation shall consist of a vinyl 1/1 single hung or double hung window to match the existing windows on the upper level south elevation at 720 Manatee Avenue. No expansion to the existing window opening is permitted. 4, decking material for the outdoor patio and dining area shall consist of track deck and composite decking with a wood grain appearance for 718 Manatee Avenue. 5, existing front metal railing along Manatee Avenue shall remain as is, and if replaced, shall match the railing approved under condition 6. Sorry, there's misorder on the slide here, but that should be 6 and 7. 6, new railings enclosing the outdoor patio and dining area shall consist of metal railings and posts. 7, new access doorway shall utilize the existing window opening on the east elevation and shall consist of a commercial metal frame and glass door to match the main entrance of a French style operation at 718 Manatee Avenue. And the following findings. 1, the request is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations to improve the economic vitality of the historic areas of the community through encouraging and fostering historic rehabilitation of structures, and 2, to promote and encourage private rehabilitation and ownership of historic structures. Concludes the presentation. I'm available for questions. Commissioners have.
Dylan, I had a question. So is the window that's still historic replaced already, or is it they asking to replace it?
you're referring to the window on the east elevation, the upper level of 720.
Yeah, the one,
Elevation.
yeah, the one that they're asking to,
It's already been replaced.
Yes.
so it's already, so technically they've already been replaced, so we're being asked Dylan to approve a disapproval?
No, so they're only requesting approval of one window. They've already replaced that window, but they were trying to match the windows that were replaced on the upper level of the front facade.
I understand that. I'm just confused about what are we approving if it's already done? What?
It has to be approved, so therefore the rest of the permitted work can continue. They will be levied a fine though.
It
for-
just
for-
is,
for
oh, I
executing.
understand about the fine. I just am concerned that in our downtown area where somehow this all got by us.
Well, yeah,
Okay, that was my question. I'll be quiet now.
well, it's unfortunately one of the casualties of, people keeping an eye on things, we discuss this with on your path, so on and so forth. It's happened a lot of times. People come in and execute work and turn out old windows without asking anyone. So, are there any other questions for staff and commissioners? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask the applicant to come up. Shlomo, would you please come up and state your full name and your place of residence?
Sheldon, 61. We also own several businesses in town and multiple commercial business in front of you before for 61 as well for changing the windows.
Can he speak into the microphone more?
Yes, absolutely. Does that sound better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shlomo. Do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Preston.
Shlomo, I have several questions. Number one, why are you proposing a over 10-inch reveal on the siding, which is wider than the standard in that historic district? I didn't find any other buildings with a over 10-inch reveal on the overlap.
I looked and I believe the closest one I saw was downtown in 900 block next to the photography place. But I did not see one with a 11. I think that one is closer to 9.
Okay, most of the ones I saw were much smaller, closer than that. Just a question, it showed up on one of your photos here. What's the purpose of the little metal strips at each joining of the siding? Little metal strips at every place the pieces join?
The general contractor suggested putting them up.
It's a seam seal. Where you join the two pieces of siding, this piece of seal that's made specifically from a contractor.
It'll be painted over to match the side.
It will be painted, okay. I just did not see it on any other side of downtown. And the vinyl replacement windows that were replaced before you owned the property, they appear to be recessed behind a wood casing frame in the windows. Was there a wood casing on the east elevation, and what happened to that wood casing around the window? It doesn't appear to be there anymore.
You talking about the window on the east side or all the windows?
The east side windows don't seem to have the same casing as the front facade. Was there one? Was it taken out in demo? Was it never there? What happened to it?
I believe it's the same as it was before. It was just a new window in the same space.
So there was no wood casing around it before.
I I don't recall that. And I would do that specific window to match all the other windows that were done previously. That's the only reason I would do that specific window.
I have a question. Will you be able to replace the siding on the west side without removing that external stairway? As your contractor said, that's going to be feasible. It is. It really touches the current ornament siding.
Sure, they can do
Okay, so you're not anticipating them to tear out
No.
that stairway.
that. No, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. My questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
The question is the siding you're putting up, it's textured rather than smooth?
I believe it is textured. I brought a sample to Dylan. Dylan, could you answer that? I believe it is textured. Is that correct?
Yeah, the siding is, it has what's called a cedar texture. It's a wood grain texture.
Dylan, is there a place nearby that has the textured cedar? I know when I was looking at the buildings, I could find smooth in the 900, but I couldn't find any textured.
I looked using Google Street View up and down the road. I wasn't able to discern whether there was wood grain, but the majority of it we see smooth.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all the questions for the applicant by commissioners? Yeah, I believe so. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Thank you, Mr. Shlomo, for coming up.
Thank you.
Is there any statements in favor of MCAC 2209 from the audience, attendees, or anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised.
And are there any statements in opposition to 2209?
No hands raised online.
Thank you, Dylan. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing parts of the hearing for 2209. MCAC 2209, and go ahead to commissioners' discussion. Commissioners, that obviously you have some concerns, and I would like for you guys to really talk those out, and we feel that the recommendation should be made. I do like to see, I'm going to just make this quick statement. I really like to see this area getting cleaned up, particularly the deck area and that access. I think that's a really wonderful attribute and appointment to the building and its usage. But I also agree that, you know, with the siding and the window, I mean, you know, we have people executing work without a permit. You know, here it is, the horse out of the barn per se, and they're wanting to do another entire wall in this siding that lacks a lot of other buildings and other good.
Well, Doug, I would just say that, you know, we have guidelines, we have design guidelines, we have, you know, in a historic district, very historic area. And because the work was done before on the siding and the windows were replaced, that I find it very difficult to say that I can support the siding, you know, with a large reveal, the window being replaced without wood around it. I prefer all the windows to go back to where they were, but that's not going to happen. But to say, you know, that's going to clean it up, it's historic building, and we're just basically saying we have design guiding lines, and if a building, something is done to a building and then it sells, then it's too bad. I just have trouble looking at the guidelines of approving, and I don't know how to disapprove it, except to say I like smooth siding and I wish the windows weren't that way, but it's pretty frustrating being a member of the HPC.
Right, no, and I agree. It's, you know, to voice our disapproval of work that's already taken place. There's still another side of the building that needs to be sided. Do we go ahead and just approve what's been started, or do we ask the applicant to remove the siding that's been put up thus far and put in something that's more in concert with the rest of the buildings in the downtown area? So I think
That's the conundrum.
commissioners, this is an opportunity for you to make that decision.
Dylan, can you speak to that? I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was basically just gonna suggest that rather than deny the request, that the siding material or trim material or whatever material be altered. There's also 718 Manitoba Avenue as part of this request, which has that deck expansion and new entryway as well.
Right. So my statement is, are we going to approve with the condition that the siding will change, or are we just going to go ahead and approve as is?
What, Dylan, what did you say? Could you say that part you said about the siding again?
I was just saying that rather than deny the request outright, that the commission amend the materials, basically. It would cause the applicant to have to remove what they've already done. But there's also, 718, which is on the same property, that's proposing an expansion of the deck and new entryway as well, as part of this request. So.
And on the deck, that has to go to, because it's going to go over the river, it has to be approved by a regional or someplace else?
So Pikespeed Regional Building Department, their floodplain will have to review
Okay.
it. They'll have to meet any requirements as far as having a building permit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's not in our purview, but it does expand over the creek when you have stepping.
Yeah, I didn't think it was either.
That's for sure. Definitely have to be something review. Well, commissioners, wait again, I'm going to entertain a motion, and I'm going to leave it up to you if you want to amend materials, or if you're just going to go ahead and move to approve FCAC 2209 as is.
Okay, I'll make some statements and see what the commission feels. Quick question, Chair, about those middle strips of junctions of the boards. Nobody else in the downtown district has that on their front side. Is that
Yes.
new?
No, it's because the new materials with all manufacturers 12 to 16-foot links. A lot of the old siding would come in these huge, long, 24, 30-foot pieces. Those native woods aren't around anymore. Specially made, extremely expensive to manufacture, but most siding, particularly like cardboard and other composite sidings, come with seams and seam, so that way the seam itself is sealed and you don't get breaking in moisture. They did, if you did remember seeing that picture, they did when they stripped the wall, they put a tie vest, which is a moisture barrier. But after it's been applied,
Well, I would state that I really find the extreme reveal on this inconsistent with the standards on the downtown historic district. I also find the wood trim around the window, or the trim material is not wood around the new window, as pictured, and as you see, as it's installed, really it's not acceptable. It's not anywhere close to what the windows look like on the front facade. They are recessed back with a casing around them. This particular trim, the window actually sticks out even further than the trim. I'm okay with providing vinyl window, only because they will match what's already there, but the trim really needs to be closer to what, front facade of the house is. We need to be able to approve this. And, something that's not part of the request, but that I noticed both in your photo and on site visit, the stairs on the west side, the risers on the stairs appear to be pieces of trim or siding, and as opposed to wood that matches the treads, that's not an appropriate use for siding and would not meet my approval for historic district compatibility. So it seems like those, I don't know when those were added, but they're the material that's being added to the siding of the house, the building right now. So it seemed inappropriate to go there, even though it's not part of this. I don't know if staff can address that.
Staff didn't notice and it wasn't part of the request.
Yeah, part of the request, but it's definitely, it's not consistent with the staircase.
And I certainly, Susan, agree with you on the reveal. I think it'll be in such a historical place, it just doesn't work for me.
So I guess the bottom line, I'd be inclined to require a smaller reveal. I would prefer smooth siding. I go with what they got, a smaller reveal, and to adjust that window trim on the east side, make sure that it's recessed. The window is actually behind the casing, as opposed to casing the same window itself.
The other commissioners who agree with this, we're going to ask Vice Chair Pressy to make a motion with the amended recommendations from staff for the approval of MCAC 2209. They would have to remove the site that was placed on the building without any approval or debate, and put in an approved, 4 or 5 inch reveals, smooth reveal siding, and we would turn around the window, and then they would be able to pour the rest.
So I would actually like to hear from the applicant about what impact that would have if we were to request a different size of siding and that we redo the window on each side.
Yeah, I would speak for sure. I explained for a previous designer, I was not involved in the
Yes, Mr.
PO Box 76171, the color ones. I wasn't involved in the selection of the siding. I am responsible for the design of the deck at 718. But I would ask if Dylan could possibly bring up the photo that he had presented before of that right-hand existing view. Because my compromise position would be that the work is been done for the most part on the east side of the building, which has very, very limited presence whatsoever because of the existence of, there you go, I don't know that area extension. Because of the existence of the 718 building, it acts as a shield for 720. So there's really very little of that building that's visible from the street. So that's 718.
So I'm going to interject, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Mr. Brook, I think what these commissioners, I think what Mr. Brook is getting at is they are asking to allow them to finish the siding on the east side of the building as is, and then the siding on the west side of the building, which would be basically the alleyway between Toasted, the new restaurant, and the Vacate place. Then that could be the smooth side, smaller reveal. And because his point is the same, he's stating that the 714 718 building obstructs the view of the side of the 720 building significantly, particularly from street level. I think that would require a place to turn around and go. I don't know how you feel about that.
Personally, I can see that as a good compromise. Leave the reveal as is, but on the side that's going to have so much visibility from the street, maybe go with a smaller reveal siding. That would work for me. Now I don't care whether it's smooth would be better, but if all we can get is the grain texture, that's at least an improvement over what's there now.
Sure. Agreed. Commissioner Porter, do you have any thoughts or feelings on that particular compromise?
Well, if I look at the design guidelines that we go by, it's not, I don't think it's an appropriate compromise. I think it should, the reveal should be as the guidelines say and as it is in that area. I just have trouble approving things that aren't part of what we're supposed to be doing. I understand about the cost. I understand it's building and materials and all of that, but at the same time, our purview is it doesn't meet our design guidelines, and it doesn't. And it was done after the fact. So, I may be the only one in the commission, but I just don't see the problem. It seems like people know that you need permits to put up siding. I mean, that wasn't done before, whoever this other person was, but it seems like people would know that you need permits to do building. But that's a moot point. I'm just looking at the design guidelines.
Well, commissioners, I'm gonna follow your lead on this particular subject. I see there's a majority here that would like to see, unfortunately, for Mr. Shlomo and his contractor, the siding that's been put in removed and replaced or gone over with a smooth, smaller reveal, and then the west side of the building to be done in a in-kind product. I'm going to, I will go with what recommendation you make.
Sure, that's if I can make a comment. I would like to remind the commission that postponement is always an option. So if we feel that we do not have enough information tonight, we can offer a postponement to the next month to refine the proposal and bring it back.
I couldn't understand what you were saying. Could you repeat it, maybe?
Yes, Commissioner Porter. So postponement is always an option for the commission. So if we feel that there isn't enough information and we want to give the applicant an opportunity to revise that proposal in lieu or instead of a denial at this stage, we can give them that opportunity to postpone to a date certain, which would be next month.
And Hannah, may I ask if it's possible for us to approve part of their MCAC when it comes to the deck, the door? They can move forward with that.
Thank you, Chair Edmondson. I would actually defer that question to Katie, our city attorney. Katie, would that be something we could work out through a single motion?
Yeah, and sorry, it is really quite hard to catch everything, but are you asking whether you can approve a portion of the application? Is that the question?
Yes.
And is it as it deals with the east side versus the west side? Is that what's being asked?
The question I presenting is, can we approve the part of the application that is basically the deck and the doorway at 718, which basically has nothing to do with the siding and 720 address. So that way they can move forward, that we're get approvals, because they still have to go to the regional board. They have still a considerable amount of work to do that. And I think the commission is in agreement that they would like to see that done. It'll help clean up the area, so on and so forth.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up the memo again.
Okay.
I think my recommendation would be not to sort of like bifurcate the process and would be to postpone to consider any additional alterations by the applicant that would better meet the criteria.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
So what kind of information would make this any different? Change the fact of what's already been done.
Basically where we're at with this right now is, Mr. Presley brought the fact that the field that's been used on each side of the 720 building is consistent with other materials and other buildings in the historic district, and they would like to see that taken out.
So are we asking them to, like, who's here, how much money this is gonna cost?
No, it's not much. It's not much.
I know, so
It's
economic,
materials. It's materials. Materials and consistency in the building. What I asked is, okay, we're just really more in the so it would be either we modify or amend the request that just the west side be done, low reveal, and it finished the east side, which are like 2 boards away from how the money be done. Or we ask them to get on the city side and set really throughout.
Dylan, what's the other property that has this type of siding on it?
The closest match I found is the building that houses Babu's kitchen. It has smooth texture, but it does appear to have a larger reveal. In guessing, I would guess probably 6 to 8 inches, maybe 9.
It's 9.
So as I understand it, what we're asking them to do is to look at what their plans are and see if they can meet the design criteria in the historic zone. Because right now, if we deny it, then it's more difficult if they can come up with a solution at the next meeting. Is that what we're trying to do?
But I said, Commissioner Porter, there's some scratch here, some sound.
Yeah. I think what we were asking them to do is to look at the design guidelines and criteria and see if they can make it work for them. Right now, it doesn't work. And we're asking them to go back and postpone it so that they can work and see if they can meet their criteria, which we find by that criteria is what we're supposed to make our decision on.
Okay.
To avoid denying everything.
It's asking her. See again.
That's up to you, Chair.
Yes, please.
So it is between postponing to taking the siding down and fix whatever needs to be fixed. I will do it. There's no, I don't think we need to postpone. Throughout the years here, I've done a lot of work on these buildings downtown, and I don't think it will change. I'm not here, I'm here to stay. I'll do it right. To be honest, when I put the siding up there, I didn't think about the reveal. My full intention was to fix the building. There was siding there before, and I didn't think it would be a big deal if there would be siding there again. I did not think about the reveal. That's the true honesty. The building is in rough shape. The water was coming in from that side as well. That's the reason I'm done. If you think I need to take it down and move to 8, 6, 4, or anything that you would like, I will do it. Whatever I've done, I've done. I just need to go forward. We as a city need to go forward. That corner of town looks rough. So I'm just trying to do the right thing. And if I've done something in the wrong order, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Shlomo. It's very gracious and magnanimous of you. So I'm going to entertain a motion to move MCAC 2209 forward with the condition that the siding that's been placed on 720 be removed and that it be replaced with a 4 or 5 inch reveal smooth siding. Would somebody like to make that motion?
And are we going to add wood trim around the one window that Susan mentioned?
Yes, I would make a motion, to make those changes and include a, wood casing around the, new vinyl windows. And move approval, or I would move approval with those conditions in addition to the recommendations by staff.
Yeah, I could see that if those are the amendments, then I could support that.
Will you second that motion?
Joy, yes, I will second it with the amendments.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have unanimous vote for MCAC 2209 material change of appearance, 718-720 Main Avenue, with amended and staff recommendations. Thank you. Okay, last but not least, how's everybody doing? All right, very good. And we're at item number 5, MCAC 2211, material change of appearance certification, demolition of 4 structures at 183 Crystal Park Road. William Blumen and Associates applicant on behalf of Manatee Cabins LLC owner. Are any of the commissioners in excuse me, I'd like to ask any commissioners need to recuse themselves? So that's our area. Good. All right. So I'm good with it, even though this is the Capital Historic District. This is on the other side of the hill. I have no vested interest in this particular project. So,
And Chair, could I ask a question? We're talking about then the demolition of the 4 buildings. That's what our topic is.
our topic is the demolition of 4 buildings. Enjoyed reviewing the application. I believe one of them is a cottage that was part of the old.
Okay, but
thing.
we're just talking about the demolition. We're not talking about all the other things. Okay.
Yeah, one of the buildings is in the right of way.
No, I know that, but I just wanted to make sure that that's what we're talking about.
That's all we're talking about tonight.
Okay, good. That's all I read into it. Thank you.
Good deal. Dylan, are you ready? Okay, Hannah, this is on you. All right. Okay.
For the record, again, so today we are actually having a preliminary hearing in the historic preservation section of code. Sorry, Joy, I just realized I was talking too early from the mic. But in the historic preservation section of code, when there is a proposed demolition, then a preliminary hearing is required by the Historic Preservation Commission in order to determine if there's enough information currently present for a future hearing on the demolition. So tonight what's occurring is this preliminary hearing, and the actual vote of the demolition will occur at the next meeting.
Okay.
But there is a recommendation to the city council, and the city council makes the final determination on whether a demo is approved or not approved. In this particular case, we have an interesting situation. We have a situation where there was perhaps a surveying error of Crystal Park Road, and that's existed how it's existed for however long. And we are currently, we have a little bit of an impasse where there is a cabin that is partially bisected by this right of way that's existing. And it's existed this way since the cabin's existed or since the right of way has existed. And that brings an interesting point before the Historic Preservation Commission. At this time, the Public Works Department is not supportive of vacating that road. However, that decision is not in front of the Historic Preservation Commission. The City Council actually makes that decision along with whether a cabin can be demoed, relocated, or anything along those lines. So tonight we're having that preliminary hearing to determine if there's enough information present for the Historic Preservation Commission to make a determination on whether a demo would be acceptable, if a relocation is possible, or some other alternative to the situation. If you have any questions about the proposed right-of-way or a vacation, I'm happy to answer those. But again, that particular component does get referred back up to the City Council as a whole. So with that, I think I'm ready to turn it over to the applicant for a presentation. And then we can give any feedback from there to if any information is missing in order for a future hearing to have everything that the commission would need to make a determination.
Well, thank you, Anna, and it looks like the applicants are preparing to come to the table. And gentlemen, once you get to the table, you can introduce yourselves with your full name and your place of residence.
Hello again, everybody. Taylor Stamp, one of the owner partners. Address is 1431 West Insurance, Demolish, Colorado.
My name is Bill Gooman, William Gooman and Associates. We are the lead planner and the applicant on the project. Our address is 731 North Weber Street, Colorado Springs.
I'm Martin Johnson. I live at 211 Crystal Valley Road, Manatee. I'm one of the general partners.
I'm Dale Stamp. I'm one of the general partners. I live in Colorado Springs, one by Oak.
Thank you, John.
Commissioners, as Hannah had mentioned to you, we do have somewhat of a dilemma here. We have a presentation that we can go through fairly quickly. Hannah, you can just go down. Okay, great. This is who we just introduced. The next item is the site plan that shows all the existing structures within the Manitoba Cabins Historic Subdistrict. Arrow down. Here's a site plan showing the existing structures proposed to be removed from within the cabin historic subdistrict. Arrow down. This is one of 3 non-historic structures that exist. This is a duplex. The second structure is a duplex. The first structure is the garage and the shop with an estimated construction date of 1985. The second structure on the top right is a duplex with an estimated construction date of 1967. Lower left is another duplex, again with an estimated construction date of 1967. In accordance with the historic preservation guidelines and also with the report that the city's consultant had prepared. I believe that the commission has a copy of that report in their package. We don't find that any of these 3 structures meet the criteria for a historic structure within the district. So in order to move forward with our development plan application, in which you had previously heard, the area that is east of Sutherland Creek is to remain within the historic cabin district. We're requesting for these 3 non-historic structures to be demolished. Any new construction would, of course, follow the guidelines of the historic preservation requirements. Our dilemma is
The structure, the cabin 7 that we're calling it, in the lower right corner of the screen. This, as far as we can tell, was constructed in 1935. And based on the consultant's report and also on the historic preservation guidelines, does meet the criteria for a historic structure that probably should not be demolished. But here's the dilemma. As Hannah had mentioned, and this was discovered nearly a year ago, there is a Crystal Park Road right-of-way that bisects this cabin in about 1/3 and 2/3. The next slide, I don't, yeah, okay, go to the next slide. There, okay. If you look in the lower left corner, at the red, yes, correct. That's the cabin that we're referring to, and I can make it out on the screen. We made the line darker that shows the current right-of-way for Crystal Park Road, and you can see how, well, drop it down a bit. Yeah, that's the line. How it bisects the cabin. As near as we can tell, that right-of-way was incorrectly surveyed about 60 years ago. Now, when we had first begun this application process, Michelle Anthony was the planner that we had been working with on this. And the recommendation at that time was to request for a vacation of that right-of-way, which would, for the length of where you see the drawing where that line is, it would move approximately 35 feet to the north and to the west into Crystal Park Road, so that it would exempt that cabin and remove it from the right-of-way. We were told at the time that mis-surveying or survey errors are discovered fairly often in the city, and that there shouldn't be any problem with requesting for that right-of-way to be vacated so that that cabin could remain intact and not be 2/3 within public land and 1/3 on private land. The application for the vacating of that right-of-way was submitted to Public Works in January of this year. It was denied by Public Works. There was, I think, some rationale that there were maintenance considerations for the future of Crystal Park Road that I guess the city wanted to have the resources available for whatever maintenance would be required. I'm not at the, Hannah, I don't really understand what the rationale was that was provided to us, but bottom line is that right-of-way needs to remain where it is. We disagree. I should mention to you that the owners wished for that cabin to remain. We had no intent of requesting for that cabin to be demolished. The cabin has been gutted so that it could be refurbished, rehabilitated, and sold. We have a couple of problems that no title company is going to underwrite that cabin as long as it sits 2/3 on public land and 1/3 on private land. It's just not something that can be, we can't. If we requested it, it would be denied. And the likelihood of somebody wanting to purchase that cabin, knowing that only 1/3 of it is private and 2/3 of it is on public land, is highly unlikely as well. We asked for reconsideration to vacate the right of way. And we're told that no, there would be no reconsideration given. Staff's position is that that right of way is located there, and that's where it's going to remain. We further investigated, and I mentioned that the cabin had been gutted, and we're, planning on the right of way being vacated. And after 2 attempts were denied to have that right of way vacated. We have the cabin evaluated. The cabin does not sit on either a concrete or a stone foundation. It's a wood foundation that sits on the ground, making it nearly impossible to dismantle or to relocate. Certainly not within anyone's budget to dismantle the cabin piece by piece and relocate it. So we went back a 3rd time and asked as recently as 2 weeks ago, will you please meet with us so that we can explain what we're explaining to you this evening of what we've attempted to do to preserve this cabin. We realize the historic value of it and the value to the Manatee cabins project here. We didn't want it demolished. There is value to it. As recently as last week, we were denied the 3rd attempt to vacate the right of way. So as Hannah mentioned, we are truly in a dilemma. We can't relocate the cabin because of the way it was constructed. It's wholly economically infeasible to dismantle the cabin and relocate it within the cabin district. We don't really want to, have one commission, be at odds with the city staff who's making the recommendation not to vacate the right of way. But here we are. We don't know what to do. And we're asking this evening for the 3 non-historic, go to the next slide. Oh, that's the one that I brought tonight. I'm sorry, I had made some modifications to, and you can go to the next slide. So arrow down, okay, we're requesting for permission to remove or demolish the garage and shop building, duplex 2829, duplex 30 and 31 from the Manitoba Cabins Historic Subdistrict. These structures were built between 1967 and 1985 and do not have any historic significance as defined by the Historic District Guidelines. Arrow down. The applicant also requests for permission to remove and demolish cabin 7 from the Manitoba Cabins Historic District. This cabin is determined to have historic significance as defined in the city's Historic District Guidelines, but our repeated efforts, as we've explained to you, to instead vacate the Crystal Park Road right of way to allow the cabin to remain have been unsuccessful. Our 3rd request is for permission to add 2 new cabins to the Manitoba Cabins Historic District to replace cabin 7, based on it being demolished or not, and as consideration for giving the Parks and the Recreation Board 2 developable lots as a pocket park, which they approved, and all new development, including two new cabins in the historic district would comply with all historic district guidelines. That's really the extent of our presentation this evening. We would request that you accept our proposal to demolish the 3 non-historic structures east of Sutherland Creek, but we're at an impasse as far as what the status and the future of cabin 7 is. We have heard from several members of the public. We did a mailer prior to this hearing, in which 200 of our neighbors within a 300-foot radius were notified of this hearing and what was at stake with regard to demolishing cabin 7. We've only heard back from 2 people, 2 neighbors, and they said it's ridiculous. Why don't they move the right of way, the cabin, that we exhausted every avenue that we have available to us to get that approved. So now we're here to ask you to make that decision on behalf of the applicant and on behalf of the city.
Thank you very much. I think the only other thing we wanted to add is we've tried to do face-to-face meetings with the individual who's making the decision about the right of way. Via you and Hannah, we have had no response on setting up a face-to-face on what's going on.
Well, I appreciate that. So and has comments for us?
Thank you, Chair Edmondson. So just for the record, the situation with the right of way is definitely a difficult one. However, it's not meant to unduly influence your decision or recommendations to the city council on what to do with that cabin. It's just context for why this request is currently happening. So that's currently within the city council's purview and not necessarily something that these commissioners can make a decision on. And again, tonight is just a preliminary hearing to make sure you have enough information on whether you can make an informed recommendation next month. So if you feel that more information is necessary in order to prove if the demolition is acceptable or relocation is not feasible, or whatever that might look like, now would be the time to ask for that. Or if you feel that staff needs to prepare additional information for you, we'd be happy to do that. So really the right-of-way situation is just context for why this is being requested here today. It's not a request that's coming from the applicant as they've stated. This is just what's currently reality, and we need to work through that.
Go right ahead.
So I have a different issue, I guess, and that is that looking at the 1704-080 in our code about demolition of structures, and I think there's a basic misunderstanding that if it's not historic and it's an historic district, that's all you need to say. And that's nowhere near all you need to say. And I think if you review the code section, basically what it says is any resource located within historic preservation.
You can come better.
Has to go through kind of what you went through a little bit with the historic cabin. That if it's older than 50 years, it has to, and that's the only criteria. It's older than 50 years. You have to answer all the questions you tried to answer for the historic cabin. You have to, and I don't need to go through the code, I don't think, but you have to talk about the architectural and historic significance. You have to have a report on the structural integrity provided by at least one certified structural engineer, and it goes on and on and on. So I think there's, and I'm not sure how we got to this point, but we need to follow the code provisions. And simply saying the 3 structures are not historic doesn't suffice. You really have to go look at the code and go through every single question that they ask before you can come back.
No. And if I could comment on that, we, in the package, I believe, did respond to the questionnaire and used your historic consultant's report and specifically cited the items from that report that I believe justify why the three other structures don't satisfy historic guidelines.
Right, but that's a totally different question. What our consultant was trying to address in that report was whether or not that eastern section should remain in the historic district. So it was all revolving around whether or not there was historic significance. That's not the issue in our code when you're requesting demolition. And again, I would suggest, that you just walk them through that section of the code, because you have to address each of the questions that are asked. You can say it's not historic, that's fine. Then you have to say whether it's structural, has structural integrity. Then you have to answer all the other questions about economic stability, plans for demolition, don't demolish. That all has to be addressed.
Isn't that questionnaire included in the package that the commission has?
I think, Doug, I think what we're doing, are we discussing it as a group or are we going back and forth? I think Ann is bringing up some very points that I was going to bring up as I looked at the thing about demolition and printed it out to study it. It's, the 1935 cabin's a whole nother thing that we have to really get more information on about how much would be vacated, what it would mean for public works, all those kinds of things are information we need. And as Ann is saying, we need more information on these three that were 67. And, we need more information. It's not, I'm not comfortable saying go for it because we don't
They're
have.
not saying that all three structures were built in 1967. They're only saying that two of the three, one was built in 1985. And the cabin number 7 in question, that is older and definitely historic or historic in nature, and there is the economic aspect of it since it's partially in the right of way, and the public works or whoever's making this decision to not abandon that part of the right of way sort of ties a hands. And it's unfortunate that what I see honestly overall is some of the code and municipality rulings that are being in its own way. I think that's something in order to, to respect the code, respect the guidelines, but also be mindful of financial and economic burden on people that are trying to do the right thing with a historic property. At some point in time, this is going to need to be streamlined, and executive decisions are going to need to be made, despite what the almost overreach of other areas are. I respect Ann Nichols or Commissioner Nichols' point that there is a section of the code that's being missed here in the questionnaires. You are correct in saying that the only reason why the consultant was brought in was, should this be included or excluded in the historic district? But at some point in time, we're going round, somebody's gonna have to call it. So I think that Hannah in planning needs to definitely get some solid straight line guidance to the applicants so we can work through this.
I would say Hannah, again, this is a code provision. We're not talking historic preservation guidelines. This is city code. So I think we need some input from Hannah and our attorney about what the code provision says, because I think our applicants have simply not been focused on that. It's not their fault, but they haven't. But I think that's what we're looking, what I'm asking you, Hannah, is for some guidance as to how they comply in this instance with this section of city code.
And this is a large project that has gone on for 3 years now. We've
But
seen changing of the guard.
But
at the
Doug-
planning commission.
That doesn't have to do with the code, whether we feel that they've been doing it for 3 years or they're trying, you know, we try to be as supportive as we can, but it's almost like the 1935 cabin. I mean, Public Works does a lot in our city. And it's almost like they're being negatively reviewed without a chance to share what they know. You know, that's information, Hannah, that I would certainly want
I
because,
disagree with you. I disagree with you completely. That has nothing to do with me throwing Public Works under the bus. They made a decision not to adjust the right of way. It's having a major economic impact on this group's progress, and it's also affecting the
well, what I heard, Doug, was different. I heard them saying that they're not responding, they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't do this. And I would need, Hannah, more information about what has gone on to understand about that cabin. I'm not saying they have to move it. I'm just saying I need more information on that, as well as what Ann is saying on the others. It's not whether I think they've been doing it for 3 years and they're trying, it's whether we meet the code. We're quasi judicial. We just can't say our feelings are, we have to go by what the guidelines in the code is.
I agree with that.
I have something else to add too, really fast. I really want all information about relocating the cabin. You guys are experts and I completely respect your talent in this. But what's in Joe's is a prime example that all those buildings, that none of them had cement foundations. All of those weren't moved just once, but twice. What, over 120 miles, and then moved again another 60 miles. And I was in Fairplay just 2 weeks ago, looking at a structure they had just brought in, and it had cobblestone foundation, and somehow they did it. I don't know how they do it, and I'm not an expert in that, but I know it's been done.
So I'll remind you that we're renovating over 20 cabins,
Yes.
huge cost. We've already been inside a lot of things that we've been trying to get through. So saying that we're not going to create funds because essentially if we don't get those 3 demolished, we don't get any funds from selling glass down the road. So we definitely won't have funds to move a cabin, and we definitely won't have funds to renovate any of the cabins, and they will sit and rot. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I want to make a point to Ann's question. I'm assuming that's questions for planning commission, not you guys, which we will definitely answer. We're simply requesting from your historic preservation commission perspective that you review these buildings and say, yes, they're not historic. We are trying to do something that is going to bring the historic back to the property. What you're bringing up is purely objective, which I really love. But last time we were here, it was purely subjective. I want to charge you all with that. I said it was purely objective, not subjective.
I just want to add on one thing. Your comment that says that we're not focused on this project, will almost make my head explode. We go by our freaking planner who gives us direction. We've gone through 5 or 6 of them. She gives us direction. Bill Duman listens to what our planners that we've had to use. And this is like all of a sudden brand new to us that we missed something. She knew what we were going to be presenting tonight. Somebody should have told her about this situation that we're not in the code and zoning and stuff like that. We never heard. So now we're going back another month or 2. My partners want to go forward with this. I don't anymore. I'm so disappointed in this city and the way the government runs and how we just continually get bullied, pushed around, beat up. We got a letter today in the mail from a person on the staff threatening us that because some bear threw trash on our property and we didn't get cleaned up in time, we're going to get fined if it happens again. It's not our trash. It was some bear who got it from another container from some person who didn't enclose it correctly, and then they throw it on us and send us a threatening letter? Who's focusing on this project? You know, it's not these guys.
Yes,
And I certainly appreciate that, and I'm not indicating that you aren't focused on this project.
We just said so.
No, what I
sorry,
said,
Commissioner Nichols, can I interject for a second?
you got to this point without city staff pointing out that in our code, which we are required to comply with.
Okay,
that-
5 of them gone, 5 planners have not told us
I
that.
know, it's not your fault.
But yes, it's costing us thousands of dollars every month.
Well, Katie wants to talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to interject because I feel like we're getting a little derailed here. And we're not addressing what's permanent to the preliminary hearing right now. I'm hearing the applicant's, concerns and maybe some complaints that are not relevant to this. At this point, I would just suggest that the commissioners, lay out what information they require to properly address this. And I would also suggest that the commissioners, get a statement from planning as to the right-of-way issue and as to why the city needs to maintain the right-of-way issue so they can further address this when it's set for a full hearing.
I think that's excellent.
I think I did indicate what information we need. What I think you need to do, Hannah, is look at section 1704-080. This primary structures that are over 50 years old, which are the duplexes and the historic cabin, have to meet the questions in this section of the code. And that's what I think the additional information, and sorry, we've gotten to this point without that being made clear, but I think the code is crystal clear that we have to go through that. And again, I couldn't apologize more that that wasn't made clear before now. But we have no discretion. We have to follow this code section.
And I think the information about the cabin from planning is good too, Katie, to hear that information along with what Ann is saying.
Would you have any ability to give us an estimate, or do you have any estimate of cost to dismantle, move that, just the historic cabin? Do you look at that, or would you want to get an outside consultant?
I would get an outside consultant, but rough guess, 100,000 to relocate.
Okay. And I just had whether there's information we need for any other options to this situation. Is there, would you all be open to selling the historic cabin and that piece of property from fees? If we sell it to the city, does it matter? If the city park property is part of the right of way?
If you want to buy it, by all means, buy
Would
it.
be something you would consider? Okay, further options, because,
That we did discuss
oh.
is
okay.
with the city, not with you or staff, but what would the options be for having the city purchase that particular property, that cabin? And to be honest with you, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that if the number was equitable for all parties, that it was probably not likely something that the city would entertain. So we never brought that up. Well, as a matter of fact, I believe in the package that you had, it may have indicated that that was discussed. The only thing that we left unresolved in the questionnaire that you have in the package was retaining a structural engineer to provide an evaluation of the properties. And that was something that when we were presented with the questionnaire that needed to be provided for the demolition, we're about 6 or 8 weeks out on getting a structural engineer anywhere near the property to make that determination, plus another 2 to 3 months after that to get a report. And we're 4 months down the road. Personally, I think the 3 cabins, or they're not cabins, the 3 structures that we're asking to be removed could be structurally sound, but they don't fit within the definition that we're going by of what should be within the historic cabin district. If you look at them, it's a garage and a shop, and it's 2 plywood and frame duplexes that were built probably by the owner of the property, not even a contractor. Whether they would even satisfy current building code is debatable. 1967, I understand, and what you're saying as far as, 50 years and older or whatever. We weren't lucky enough to get in under the wire with something that was built in 67. There's no value to those whatsoever. And I understand what you're saying about a literal interpretation of the code. We asked for literal interpretations of the code previously and were turned down. This time, we thought it would be easier that we're presenting to you with a request to demolish 3 structures that have absolutely no intrinsic value within the historic cabin subdistrict. So now we'll be glad to let the planning commission make that determination, and should those 3 structures be demolished. We thought we addressed and answered the questionnaire properly.
One more quick point I want to bring up. Just back to the windows, talking about the previous presenter, how he wanted to remove what had been done because it was done properly. These weren't approved ever by the historic commission. So for us to keep these, it's kind of like you guys going back and forth saying, you should keep that because they were done. Sorry, but these guys have to do that because it's done. So again, it's objectively, not subjectively, you're telling us maybe we might have a NAM will definitely get info to make sure we satisfy all requirements. But I just want you to remember that these were built in the 60s. These have those historical significance. We're giving you guys the opportunity to move so we can put contributing structures on the property back to what it once was.
What you're throwing at us is probably 6 months. Get a structural engineer. You know how hard it is to hire people like that in today's age. You know how hard it is for us to go, if somebody go clean up the bears, trash that they made. You can't find people to do this. That's the way this economy and this atmosphere is going right now. And you're just throwing roadblocks. This property is zoned where we can have 1 donkey per acre. I was just up in 2 days, up in rural days, fair play. These guys want to proceed. I want to put 9 donkeys on that property. Let it sit till some people come to reason and common sense. I think this young man here understands our dilemma, and he's supporting this greatly. And I really, really appreciate your thought process. But the rest of this, my brain is ready to explode, as you can tell. I've been in business real estate for 35 years. This is crazy.
Well, Hannah, I'm going to look to you in what direction we should move with this. I'm going to be, at this point in time, I think the gloves are off. I'm going to be honest. I really feel sorry for you guys. I've looked at that property all of my life. And you gentlemen have done work with that property the last 18 months, done for 30 years. And the public needs to hear that. I don't care what anybody thinks about it. but you guys are really trying to do the right thing, and I'm sorry you're going through this. The 3 buildings that are in question of garbage, they should have come down long ago. I agree, they have no contributing aspects at all, particularly when it comes to the log cabin historic district. I'll argue that's a pay I have. However, we're not here for that this evening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our senior planner in which direction they should, the commission should move as a body, and so we can wrap up this evening.
Thank you, Chair Edmondson. So I understand clearly the information that the Historic Preservation Commission is looking for the formal hearing that code requires at this stage. So my understanding is that we need a full report of all the items that are listed in code for each of those structures. And that's what we'll work for or work towards next for a formal hearing. And that was the intent or what's required to come out of a preliminary hearing that's required by code.
Thank you, Hannah.
Well, is that it?
I think it is.
Okay, I think that's it, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time and being so patient with us this evening. I guess we're going to move on to section 5, other business. Item 6, discussion of update regarding Carnegie Library. We've already done that. I was moved earlier or the meeting. We're going to go to section 6, notice of council action. We have reports of council action.
Thank you, Chair Edmondson. No, we did not have any reports on that.
Very good. Well, with that, I think the commissioners are in agreement that we should adjourn this meeting. There's anyone question that? Very good. This meeting is adjourned. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Somebody dropped the ball, you know, and it was right in the middle of Michelle leaving.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.